Hey guys, welcome to Fanfic Fanatics. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku married to nine-tailed Ochako, part 3. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is My Kyubi Wife by Stillwell03. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. As Izuku and Ochako returned to the dorms, they noticed Kumasi laying on his stomach with his front paws over his head. Ichi and Kitsu were beside him, holding their heads in shame as well for the two to feel the unease in the room. What happened? One the girls looked down, with Yayorozu answering somewhat shamefully. She was taken. Damn it. Ochako whacked one of her tails at a potted plant holding a small tree for the pot to shatter while using two other tails to break the trunk in half. What happened? A portal came out of nowhere with us, seeing her get taken into it only when she started screaming. I tried to grab her, but something on the other side attacked us and kept me from. Then Bakugo went and Sue stopped feeling horrible. This happened. Wait, Bakugo chased after her? I'm guessing he was taken too, wasn't he? This is bad. Muscular said he was one of their targets back when the camp was invaded, according to what Tiny told us. As of right now, unfortunately, you all are being ordered to remain here. Midnight walked into the room looking rather irritated. Due to this incident, we are officially putting the campus on lockdown, and until an incident that is happening in Kamino is finished, none of you are to leave this dormitory without permission from a teacher or pro. So you want me to stay here when my daughter was kidnapped while in the safety of the dorms? Screw that. I'm going to find her. Ochako tried to walk away before having the R-rated hero place her arm out. As a woman, I understand your anger, Ochako. However, that doesn't mean you can just go and do whatever you want. Chances are, the same man that kidnapped Eri and Bakugo is the same who was the one who created the Nomu that have attacked the USJ and the training camp. For now, it's best to avoid causing problems at the moment for the heroes who are doing what they can to complete this task and save Eri and Bakugo. Ochako didn't want this to be the case, but Izuku pulled her out of this anger with a hug. I understand you're mad, Ochako, but there's nothing we can do right now. Let's let the pros handle this for now. If something happens where we can help, we'll do it. I guess you're right, but I can't just sit here and do nothing while they have my daughter. You're forgetting Bakugo. Him too, I guess. The class tried to ignore this, with Iida turning on the TV. 1. Since we cannot do anything, we might as well keep track of how the raid is going. This just in. Undead are walking the earth. A news anchor panicked as video footage of undead zombies walking the streets causing hysteria. Due to eyewitness reports, these undead fox people have come from deep in the forest of Mustafao and are walking the streets towards the west. Video footage of the undead army and police attacking them. 1. Keep firing, men. Many of the police began shooting at the zombies, with the undead zombie men slicing the bullets in half, protecting the shrine maiden zombies. Don't hold back. 1. The police started to trip back and fall on their back. They're gonna kill me. Tell my wife I love her. Several female shrine maidens grabbed the man's arms with him, thinking they were going to kill him. However, the undead began lifting him up and patting the dust off his body before returning on the journey they were having. One by one, the police lowered their weapons and let them pass without being attacked and instead, being walked past. 3. Okay. I'm seeing this correctly, right? The news reporter questioned the cameraman for him to shake their heads up and down. So what's going on here? Everyone looked over to Ochako for an answer. Alright, so what exactly is happening, Ochako? Ashido questioned. How the heck should I know? I'm just as confused as you are. Maybe Lady Inari has something to do with this. Alright. What type of crazy god or deity can do something psycho like this? Kumasi came behind Kaminari before breathing on his head to unsettle the man as a warning. Yeah, don't anger a bear. The sun bear sat on the blonde for the class to ignore this from happening. 1 hour later in Kamino, Tusa came riding down in the city on an undead horse, scaring the people on the streets. Why'd I feel like everyone is talking about you, Cinders? The undead horse PFF'd it as a reply. Now where can I find All for One? LLLLLAADDDDDDYYYYYYYYY. An undead 10-tailed fox samurai came towards Tusa while pointing in a direction. TTTT theory. If I wasn't born in the Inari house and riding an undead horse, I'd probably scare myself to the point I'd faint right now. HYA Cinders. Tusa tapped her horse to move faster with it heading in the direction of where the undead zombie asked her to go. Once in the area, she noticed several pros trying to push back her undead relatives with Mount Lady preparing to stomp on them. Wait, Tusa got in front of the undead horde with Best Jeanist standing in front of the small group. These undead aren't after you all, they're after a man that leads the League of Villains. He stole my granddaughter and brought about our goddess's wrath. Lady, that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. I'm stomping on them. Mount Lady slammed her foot down for an undead samurai with 6 tails to hop up to grab the blonde pro's hair and bring her down to the ground, knocking her concentration and returning to normal size. Oh, I'm gonna be zombie food. I'm too pretty to die. She held her hands up expecting to feel teeth enter her body and feel nothing in return. What the? She opened her eyes to see the samurai zombie that took her down and offered his hand for her to come back to her feet. 3. SSSSSSSORRRRRRRYYYYYY. I have to be high on some kind of acid right now because I could have sworn this walking corpse just said sorry to me. 2. If you are, then the rest of us are. Gang Orca spoke up for the undead to walk past the pros and attack the Nomu in containers before going deeper in. All right. I think it's best if you explain to me what is happening, miss. Easy. The man who is behind the League of Villains has kidnapped my granddaughter who also happens to be Goddess Inari's daughter by blood. This undead army is my ancestors and those who worship Lady Inari giving human form again. I haven't heard anything more ridiculous in my entire life. This defies the laws of this world. 1. Jeanist. You just saw one of your fellow pro-heroes here get taken down and brought back to her feet by an undead here before it apologized for what it did. Do you really think it's that hard to believe? Tiger spoke up while hearing this to have his opinion heard. She has a point. By any chance, is your granddaughter's name Eri Midoriya? Why yes, she is. Then you must be Mrs. Midoriya's mother. She's quite a kind and caring woman. You certainly have done a good job raising her. Oh my. Thank you for the compliment, Mr. Tiger, but my husband deserves some of the praise. He at least helps offer a strong male role model for her to give Ochako a good idea on what type of man she should marry. I'm glad she obtained someone like Izuku. Such a kind and caring man he is. It seems fate has a horrible way of presenting itself, doesn't it, Tusa? Hearing the voice of a metallic speaker, Tusa's fur went on edge with her pulling out a naginata to fight with. It has been quite a while, all for one. Tusa grits her teeth seeing the visage of her old enemy. If you return my granddaughter to me, I'll let you keep your head. 1. Well then, let's just cut the pleasantries, shall we? The child refuses to be of use to me, as stubborn and feral as all of you fleabags are. Beast quirk users are of no use to me, them and the mutants. I'll cast your body aside like the vermin you are. Suddenly, All for One turns his head up and raises both hands to guard himself as All Might appears seemingly from the stars through the roof of the building, landing a massive punch on his old adversary. All for One. All Might barks through gritted teeth as he presses his fist hard against the old enemy's arms. Come to kill me. Again? All Might? Keep him right there, All Might? Tusa came charging with her blade prepared to attack for AFO to push his adversary aside and create a massive shockwave directly at the Fox Maiden. She evaded it with the pros nearly being sent back if it had not been for the 10-tailed samurai slicing the attack in half. AAAAAALLLLLFFFF for RRRR Uani. It would appear that you have some assistance this round. I may need to rid this area of the monstrosities you have. The villain narrowly avoided a slice from Tusa's blade to open his suit and wow a viscous scar on his chest. The flesh indented in and looked as if a rib bone or two was missing from where the gash was. Do you enjoy your handiwork, mongrel? Even today, the pain of this stings just as much as the scar I have from All Might. If we're being honest, yes I do. I hope it hurts constantly for what you did to my own mother in hopes to gain our power. All Might came at AFO with another fist to narrowly miss his nemesis's face. Where is my granddaughter, you decrepit, despicable, lowlife? AFO stole one of the Midoriya children. Not knowing of the fairly recent news, All Might felt a bit of worry for his successor's children. Master, Shigaraki spoke up with the league out near the open area with several undead surrounding them. SSSS's Shigaraki. The samurai came at the villain with him decaying several weapons with AFO attempting to head towards his successor. However, Several undead shrine maidens pulled arrows back and attacked the villain. He used an air force attack to diverge the arrows with a set of undead fox women charging him with different weapons to nearly have himself be killed. Filthy undead maggots. AFO sent a shockwave that sent the undead back to get towards his disciple before noticing Bakugo with Eri in his arms blasting away from everyone. 3. Don't worry Runt, I gotcha. The small child held onto the ash blonde in fear with AFO holding a bit of anger. 1. You truly think you can escape? A wave of fox fire came at the villain before another punch from All Might broke his visor showing the scarred top half of AFO. Do not take us lightly you monster. Chusa came charging with her naginata to give a downward strike at the villain. At the edge of the battlefield. Okay, so tell me how we all got here again. Iida questioned as him, Ochako, Izuku, Tsu, Kirishima, Todoroki and Yaoyorozu came to Kamino in hopes to help where they could. I tried to stop Ochako from going to Kamino alone with you and Kirishima worried I might do something dangerous to bring Todoroki along with you. Meanwhile, Tsu and Yaoyorozu wanted to console Ochako for having one of our children kidnapped. Since you weren't happy with us breaking the rules and neither was Yaoyorozu, you joined us while everyone else felt somewhat responsible for this and joined in hopes to make sure Eri is saved as well as Kacchan. Izuku explained while holding up crudely drawn pictures of what happened to present a slideshow for everyone. 3. I came more for Eri, but I guess we could save Bakugo too if we have time. Ochako phrased this as they heard a massive blow happen. They moved away from a wall a bit to see what was happening and noticed Tusa and All Might facing a man both Izuku and Ochako could only believe was AFO. Seems we're in the right place. Ochako pulled her katana out to get ready to join the fight. I'll enjoy severing that man's head. As much as I love the way you phrased that, I'll have to stop you from doing that. Izuku held his wife's waist to keep her from going onto the field. Right now, we're facing a man that is literally a monster fighting your mother who I personally think is part demon and All Might. Right now, we're a little outmatched. However, there is one thing we can do that will help but also keep us from getting too involved. Everyone looked at Izuku curiously before Kirishima understood what he meant. You mean we will save Bakugo and Eri? Exactly. Now obviously the frontal move won't work. Between them and us is the major fight that's happening as well as the League fighting an army of zombie fox people. This implies we need to think smart and find a way to avoid the battlefield. Izuku thought about this for a while trying his best to come up with something before finally getting an idea. I got it. We're going to save them without actually stepping foot on the field. Can you phrase that in a way that doesn't make it sound like you're making this up as you're going along? Todoroki asked for Izuku to explain. Right now, the biggest problem is AFO. However, he's being held back by All Might and Ms. Tusa. That means if we can get them in the air, which we know Bakugo can do, we're golden. So here's what I have. Todoroki will make a large ice glacier when I give the signal. When he does, a group consisting of me and Iida will charge through this wall we're hiding behind with Ochako on our shoulders making us and Kirishima weightless with one of her powers. She'll also hold Kirishima who'll use his quirk to break the wall down. When that happens, the four of us will run up the glacier and jump over the battlefield. There, Kirishima who has had a relatively stable friendship with Kacchan will offer his hand to help escape. Out of everyone here, Kacchan will take his hand out of everyone else's here. When he's secured, myself, Iida and Kacchan will add to the forward momentum and flee the area with Tsu, Todoroki and Yaoyorozu escaping during the chaos not being discovered to be here yet at this time. Any questions? Ochako smiled at her husband before pulling him in for a deep kiss to give him a bit of confusion. Joy, but still confusion. She leaned into his ear to speak with a smile. When this is over, I wanna try and see if we can have another baby. I'm sure you'd like a cute little boy as well as the time we spend making a new baby brother for Seiko. Izuku pulled away a bit somewhat embarrassed thinking what he was for them to get ready for their plan. Izuku and the group began to get themselves ready for their plan with Ochako hopping on top of Izuku and Iida before making them weightless so they don't float. She then grabbed hold of Kirishima by the back of his pant pelt and a specialty harness that Yaoyorozu created to avoid her unintentionally strangling the redhead. Let's just get one thing straight before we go any farther, I'm not committing infidelity with Kirishima, Izuku. Everyone stopped to look at her before stating their honest opinions. Nobody thought you were. I just wanted to make that clear, in Kirishima. I only like you as a friend, so don't breathe into this too much. I didn't even plan to think too deeply into this until you said something. After the awkward actions, the group looked over the wall to see Tusa and All Might continuing their battle with AFO. 1. Disgusting rabid dog. AFO sent an air pressure attack to the fox woman for her to slice it in half with her naginata before she came charging towards the villain. Her attack was blocked by the villain's forearm before he smirked under his mask. Impact recoil. The act sent Tusa back towards the undead group, with some of the shrine maidens catching her and setting her back on her feet. It'll take more than that to kill me. Tusa used a cherry bomb to create a smokescreen around AFO before coming to the side of him to give an upward strike. The blade was caught with most of the villain's strength going to keep it down. 3. Did you honestly think that would work? It wasn't to hide me. Tusa smirked as All Might came over to give a solid punch to AFO's face to send him sliding back. Now this is for me. The fox woman attacked and narrowly missed, piercing AFO's chest to impale him in his right shoulder. Master. Shigaraki dodged an attack by a fox samurai for him to grab the zombie's neck and have it turn to dust. Filthy monsters. A fox shrine maiden sent a spear towards Shigaraki, with him almost having it stab him before seeing the zombie he killed come back from the dust and reform back into what it once was. What are these things? 3. SSSSS's Shigaraki. Get away from me, you monsters. The group of villains from the League were also struggling to fight the undead fox followers to regain Bakugo and Eri. In response to the madness, Bakugo was blasting away the undead, thinking they were coming after them as well. Die, 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 you fucking monsters. A six-tailed samurai grabbed both Bakugo's arms as some of the others grabbed his legs. Kid, run. He looked around to see some of the fox shrine maidens lifting her up. Leave her alone. Bakugo, it's okay. They're good zombies. How the hell does that even work? Toga came charging at the two, with the fox samurai forming a defensive line to take her on while the shrine maidens used long spears and arrows to attack. 2. SSSSSTTTTAAAAYYYYYYYBBBBBBHHHHIIINNNNNNDDDDDD. Bakugo stood confused as hell before looking over to see Eri being treated as if she was a gem by the undead fox shrine maidens. Okay, I believe you now. A massive wave of ice caught everyone's attention on the field for them to see a glacier come out of nowhere. Stay close to me, kid. Bakugo grabbed Eri and placed her on his shoulders for her to hold onto his head, unsure what was happening. As this happened, a wall shattered to show Izuku and Iida jumping off the glacier, with Ochako holding Kirishima like a battering ram. Seeing Kirishima being let go, the redhead gave his hand out and shouted, "Bakugo!" He activated a massive explosion to send both him and Eri into the air, with the small child holding onto him in fear. Bakugo grasped Kirishima's hand to smirk at him. You idiots. Eri. Ochako used her tails to pick Eri up and put the small child in her lap, smiling. I'm so glad you're okay. The mother then looked at Bakugo with an indifferent look. I could go either way. 1. You wanna go, fox bitch? 5. Can we please focus on getting away right now? Kirishima asked for Izuku, Iida and Bakugo to start blasting away from the battle towards safety. We need to get to safety. If what I overheard is true, then that guy can take our quirks. We need to get the fuck out of here. Wow, never thought I'd hear you scared. Kirishima states, a bit shocked at the ash blonde's reply. If that's the case, they're going to need some assistance. Kurama, Ochako asks, causing the demon Kitsune to manifest in a puff of pitch black smoke. Go kill the guy with no face fighting Mom and All Might. I've been waiting for the day you finally let me go on a rampage. Kurama grins as Ochako throws the shrunken fox down. He immediately grew to monstrous proportions for Shigaraki to begin screaming at what he was seeing. 2. Oh look, it's the giant thing that nearly killed us before. Toga states in an unamused statement for one of the tails to knock her and the rest of the small group from the league off into the distance. I'll remember your face. The blonde shouts this as she flies farther away from everyone. 8. Larui Jenkins. Kurama screams as he slams into the ground right on top of All for One. 18. 30 seconds prior. Insignificant little pests. AFO began shouting in anger as Bakugo and Eri were able to escape with Tusa starting to laugh. Ha 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 ha. Now that's funny. Did your whittle pawn not go the way you wanted it to? Oh, you must feel so sad. Wah wah. The villain glared at Tusa in rage before activating his several quirks. It means little. I can still reach them now, especially with that feline hero's quirk. To be honest, I was holding back and indulging you all. But now, I've lost my patience. And here I was thinking you were always this weak. I might start taking this seriously as well. Tusa smiles as she uses her 3 tails to undo weights around her wrists and ankles. The weighted clothing slams to the ground with enough force to crack the concrete. I feel 1,000 kilograms lighter with those off of me. 3. Maybe you had just gotten fat, my old enemy. Okay, that's just mean and I thought you were above petty insults. My granddaughter could have come up with a better one than that. Anything to demoralize the filth in front of Larui Jenkins. Kurama screams as he slams into the ground right on top of All for One. Not so tough now are you dickface. Kurama declares as he stamps and twists his paw back and forth as someone would do with their foot when they crushed a large spider. 3. That insult was also why I didn't at least warn you to look where you're standing. Looking up at the giant fox demon, Tusa smiled. I'd be careful where you step, Kurama. You just landed in burning garbage. Get off of me you overgrown furry. No, fuck you. Kurama held his paw down with AFO slowly moving it up out of sheer force. The human has strength, I'll give him that. 6. How dare you insult me in such a way? I will kill you all. 2. I guess I should show my own special skill. Like I said, I haven't been taking this seriously. Tusa's Naginata vanishes into thin air as her body starts to radiate a deep purplish black. All Might watches on as his ally activates her quirk. The purple haze around her body envelopes her form causing her to vanish. Around the darkness of the night-set battleground 3 pairs of crimson eyes illuminate inside the haze. The sound of swords being drawn from their scabbards was heard around for Kurama to flick his paw forwards sending All for One flying into All Might who delivers a well-timed punch to the spine of the arch-villain. Just what is she doing? All Might questioned as Tusa moved around to surround AFO with the black smoke revealing 3 different Tusas. The Demon Trinity, Judge, Jury and Executioner. As the haze clears 3 versions of Tusa stand in front and flanking All for One creating a perfect triangle around him. Her body had changed now with a single skeletal tail protruding from the back of her armor. Over her face sat a fox's skull mask with glowing red eyes from behind it. All 3 clones were dual-wielding twin cursed katanas that burned with unholy purple fire. I don't often get to use this part of my quirk. This is the first time I've done so in almost 20 years. Had I used it the first time we fought, we wouldn't be speaking. Each version of Tusa spoke in unison creating an eerie atmosphere as All for One is surrounded by his arch-nemesis, his attempted killer and an army of the undead. This is the end for you. I hope you've put your affairs in order. The 3 fox women began circling around in intense speeds where they weren't able to be seen and slowly closing in. When the circle was mere inches away from AFO, each of the 3 strikes landed either to his head, his torso, or to his legs for AFO to feel 6 blades pierce his body. 3 Fox Shrine Maiden Secret Style, Ashura's Benevolence. 5. The 3 sliced and came to the opposite side of where they were when they attacked before slowly reforming back into one entity. Tusa sheathed the blades slowly before pushing them towards the hibaki of the blades. Once fully sheathed, cuts were seen on AFO where the Fox Shrine Maiden and her clones attacked piece by piece. The former villain burst into black flames leaving the remains nothing but ash. May death bring comfort and rest to all those you have wronged in the eons that passed. Tusa begins walking away with the clones catching up to their host and fading into purple haze as they reunite with her. With each clone that dissipates her tails return to her body. I hope Eri's okay. She must have been so scared. In the afterlife, AFO stood in front of 2 figures looking at him in disgust and anger. One was Inari, while the other was Shinigami, the god of death. The 2 deities said nothing as they judged him, all present knew of what was next to come. Shinigami didn't even look at his sister but merely waved a hand over the powerless soul before him evaporating the form, purging it. What remained was a single white light, almost too small to be seen by even the two gods. Shinigami raised an eyebrow looking at the tiniest inkling of good that was within the arch-villain. Playing through the memory of that one good act they watched as the Blight of Man bestowed a power to his younger brother so that he may defend himself, thus creating one for all. Humans say that no good deed goes unpunished, and that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That one act of giving Ginjo Shigaraki that quirk all those years ago would come back to be his undoing. Well, almost. This one will take eons to send back through the cycle, hopefully history will not repeat itself. Shinigami says, letting what is left of the soul float to his hand before taking it and turning to Inari. That is the last of the immortals for this millennia, I hope. I have some work to do and you still have one more soul that I'm owed. That is, if he can't be redeemed first. There's more than meets the eye with Tenko Shimura. A past full of fear, pain and sorrows. He isn't pure evil but merely a villain of circumstance and environment. I will try to push his fate towards the path of redemption. If not, he may be redeemed in his next journey through the moral coil. 1. Understood. Inari began walking away through the gate to her realm while Shigaraki turned back to the entrance to the afterlife. Now, what shall I do with you 7 now that he is no longer a problem? Shinigami made this statement with the 7 entities being the past wielders of One for All that remained on Earth within the soul of the 9th. With All for One dead you have no reason to remain. I wonder what is keeping you. He passed through all of the spirit stories to see they cannot move on unless one final requirement is done. Heroes in life and even still heroes in death. I respect you. So many souls owe their lives and fates to you and your deeds. I can wait a bit longer for you to return to me. The souls left for Shinigami to return to his duties with other souls, patiently waiting for the day Izuku can meet the final requirement for the others to pass on. With the events of the final battle against All for One now behind them, the students of Class 1A now trying to return to a bout of normalcy. However, there was without a doubt something eating at Ochako. For her, something's been on her mind for at least a week. 5. Hey Ochako, what's wrong? Ashido came over to her in the common room to find out what had their fox classmate in such trouble. Mina, have you ever wanted to make something up to someone really close to you? Thinking this may have something to do with her and Izuku, she immediately tries to find out. Did you and Mido have a fight or something? No, it's not that, it's just. Just what? She sighs before holding a calendar with a date written big. The acid quirk user saw what was written to realize. Mido's birthday was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was during the training camp. And I forgot it. Ochako held an angered look as she kept explaining. After everything that's happened, it completely slipped my mind and now I'm trying to think of something in order to fix what I messed up. This seemed to get the pink-skinned girl's ideas flowing to start thinking of what they could do. Have you tried something like dinner at a nice place? Neither one of us has a lot of money to do something fancy enough to apologize for that. My folks haven't sent the funds for the baby this month yet. Maybe an all-night love session. That's every other Friday and Saturday. Sex in the bath. My fur gets all clogged in the drain and it would make a huge mess. That's why shower stall 5 smells like a wet fox. Not wanting to go any farther with that, the two continued to brainstorm ideas. It was only when they found an old cartoon with women coming out of a cake that Ashido got an idea. 1. There's something you can do. You can put yourself in a giant cake and be Mido's birthday gift. You know, that's not a bad idea. But how am I going to get a cake big enough to hide me? The two questioned before hearing someone come down from the guy's side. The person was none other than their class sweet fixer Sato. 2. That's it. Ochako got up to run towards her classmate. Sato, can you make a cake big enough to fit me inside it? Maybe also with icing on it. Well, I do have the stuff for it, but I need a lot of flour and sugar to do it. Not a problem, Ochako said as she had Tiny come behind her with 4 100-pound bags of flour and sugar. Will rice flour work? 2. I actually wanted to do a cake with rice flour. It should be done by tomorrow afternoon. Sato says, looking a bit excited for his next baking project. 4. Yay. Oh, and don't tell Izuku. This is for him. Lips are sealed. Sato was given the flour and sugar and went straight to work. Meanwhile, Ochako had Ashido come along with her upstairs to pick out the best outfit and undergarments in order to make the day even better. 1. The next day, after the cake was finished, Sato and Shoji had helped open the top for Ochako to sit inside. They timed it right for Izuku to come home from an afternoon run minutes after they'd left. The group then was taken to Dagoba Municipal Beach where Eri and Seiko would be able to visit the temple as well as the class having fun with Aizawa supervising. Everyone left with Tiny giving a single fox a note around its neck and informing it to not eat the cake since it was a gift for the young master. It yelped in agreement before sitting down on the stool next to the enormous cake. A few minutes of dead silence was held before the sound of a door opening was heard. Hello. Izuku walked in to see no lights on and none of his classmates inside. Did they all go somewhere and not say anything? Walking deeper in, Izuku found a massive cake on the tile floor with a fox holding a note that was tied around its neck. The OFA user took the note to read it. You'll also like. Back for you, Izwocha. 121k 2.3k. Deku watches as Shigaraki brutally murders all of his friends and family. Shigaraki is about to finish Deku off but then the world starts to fade into nothing. Manga SP. Living with the Midoriyas. 150k 2.7k. Izuku, Ochako, and Eri have been happily living as a family for the past 5 years, but when they encounter an unexpected surprise, will this family of 3 be able to belong? Come back to me, Izwocha. 102k 1.9k. After their encounter with Mirio Tagata, Izuku Midoriya and Ochako Uraraka find themselves getting closer to one another. However, just as things may seem to be going well. Electromagnetic engagement. 281k 5.3k. Izuku Shimura, the son of Nana Shimura, is the holder of a rather powerful electricity quirk since childhood. Due to a prior incident, he is put in a quirk marriage with Deku's true power. 212k 3.9k. Izuku Midoriya, a quirkless loser who had nothing to live for. He took his childhood friend's advice and jumped. When he didn't die, his life changed forever. Number 1 in Izuok. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. 205k 3.2k. Izuku Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo have always had a rocky relationship between the two. But what happens when Izuku's girlfriend Ochako Uraraka finds out something more? A second chance. Izwocha future story. 16k 355. Izuku has been a pro hero for 6 months now, fighting villains and protecting citizens with a smile. He gets a big job by patrolling at one of the biggest festivals in Ya. To my sweet husband, sorry for forgetting your birthday. Hopefully the sweet treat and gift inside makes up for it. Ochako, she made a cake for me. That's so sweet of her. Izuku pulled a bit of the icing off the cake to taste it. And that's really sweet. Izuku was about to grab a knife to cut into the cake and enjoy a piece before the top tier of the massive 3-tier cake moved to the side. What the? When it was halfway off, a set of hands came out to sway a bit before motioning Izuku to get closer. He did as the hands suggested for them to hold the bottom of his chin with a certain fox brunette coming out of the cake, smiling as she sees him. Hello Izuku, are you ready for your present? Ochako says. She is wearing an almost see-through t-shirt that says, Deku, on it. Later that evening, the class of 1A as well as the children returned to find Izuku laying on the couch with Ochako sitting on his lap licking his neck. Yo man, what smells so good in here? Kirishima asked Ochako to look at her pink friend to make an excuse. Sato made a cake for Mido since we missed his birthday. Maybe that's what you smell. The group began to leave to change with Ochako smiling at her husband. She leaned close to his ear to whisper something in his ear. Did you like your birthday gift? Ochako coos, nibbling at his earlobe gently. Very, thank you. She smiled before licking his neck again. You still smell so good from that cake. Makes me wanna do what we did again. Izuku couldn't help but smile thinking of how much enjoyment he'll have soon when the two are alone again. I think we could escape for a little while longer. Izuku suggests, hinting at the two of them retreating to their bedroom to continue. Good, because I'm not done giving you all my cake to frost. Ochako grins, biting her lip slightly in lust-filled anticipation. Then we'll just have to finish doing that. The two waited for the best time to leave for a few minutes before heading upstairs to continue to hump like rabbits before calming down enough to continue the evening. Eri, Yaoyorozu questions seeing the young kitsune sitting upside down on the couch playing on her Nintendo. The kitsune girl turns and faces the vice president of her parents' class and arches an eyebrow. Where are Midoriya and Ochako? Shouldn't you be with them? Mommy said that I can play my game while they get everything ready. Tiny has Seiko so they can get everything ready. Eri replies pointing to the large fox man gently cradling the seven-tailed infant in his arms holding a bottle to the baby's face so that she may eat. We're going on vacation. Oh come on. Why do the Midoriyas get to go on vacation and we have to stay here at Ua? How is that fair? Kaminari complains as he slumps over on the beanbag in the corner. I wanted to go to Okinawa and see all the sexy ladies at the beach. Maybe also see if I can get Jiro to go in a sexy swimsuit too. 3. Kaminari, we're going to Miyagi-Zao, or Fox Village on the island of Shiroshi for a couple of weeks. As to why we get to go, this was Eri's idea for Lord Izuku's birthday which was earlier this month. We will return midway through August and a couple weeks before the start of the fall semester here at UA. Tiny answers switching bottles for Seiko to continue eating. It is a way to get everything that had happened during the training camp behind us and to enjoy some well-deserved R&R for the young master. Especially after the hellish training he had gone through at my own hands and that of his mother-in-law. You know, after seeing the display Lady Tusa put on against that villain overlord. I'm scared to even begin to think about what you had for Midoriya during his training while he and Ochako were on leave for their daughter's birth. Iida adds as he watches Ochako float several suitcases down the stairs piling them neatly to the side of the door. Most of it consisted of weight training. He was wearing close to the equivalent weight of 3 All Mights by the end of the training. As for the weapons training he had gone under with Lady Tusa, he is adept at using most forms of kendo and kyudo and even some shinobi techniques which he used against myself and All Might in the final exams. Tiny explains, creating a small wisp of fire to give them the image of Izuku training with 3 All Mights sitting on his shoulders and him using sword and bow styles. He learned from the best teacher in all of Japan. There's a reason why Lady Tusa's name among the heroes' associations and the government is Yakiru. 1. Master of 8,000 styles. I find that hard to believe. Bakugo scoffs before meeting the glare of both Tiny and Kumasi. However, she did turn that all for one guy into mincemeat. While I'm skeptical, I'm not saying it's not true. He says, defending himself from their glare. It did kinda throw me off too. It's hard to believe that someone that is deemed as strong if not stronger than All Might is actually Ochako's mom. Strange how things go. Izuku started to chuckle a bit as Kumasi walked over to headbutt his family's head. During the time he spent with the group, Kumasi grew fond of Izuku to even act like a loyal dog. Hey Kumasi, you ready to head out too? MRRPH. The bear replied as Tiny gave Ochako Seiko with the family heading out soon after. We'll be back before fall semester starts. The group headed out with several foxes joining the journey alongside them to the gate. When they got there, All Might was sitting in a car with the trunk open for their things. Are you all ready to head out? We are. Thank you for the help, All Might. The blonde patted Izuku's head while smiling. It's nothing. Also, did you pack equipment? Izuku didn't know what All Might was talking about for the former pro to give another metaphor. You know, proper tools for your events. Once again, this went over Izuku's head for it to irritate All Might. Something to prevent you having another child. Ooh, why yes. Izuku blushed while answering. Izuku, I'd be more than happy to carry another one of your children if you wish. All you just have to do is say the word and I'm all yours for the night. Ochako pulled Izuku close for him to feel an extreme uncomfort growing in him. Not a bad one, more like one he'd rather present itself when him and Ochako aren't around other people to handle. Alright, before this gets to something that needs a quotation between it to happen, let's head over to the airport so you don't miss the flight. Ochako groaned before allowing it to happen. Fine, but you're mine tonight, Izuku. One of Ochako's tails came over to pull the green-haired boy closer in for him to feel her soft body press up against him to know Ochako is not taking no for an answer. Let's get you buckled in, Eri. The kitsune mother went over to the car to buckle her children in with all might, a little surprised. I thought that the mating season for foxes was between December and February. 1. It is. Ochako as well. Quite the enthusiastic mother who somewhat has an unusual heat cycle pattern from what I've gathered. All Might looked at his student in concern. Think of it as if I wasn't as strong as I was, I'd probably be dead by how active she is. Sounds like heaven or hell for you. Some days are more intense than others. A shiver went down the blonde's spine as he got inside the car to prepare to head out. As he did, he somewhat hoped that Izuku was going to be okay for this trip. Few hours later, after a long and tiring trip on a plane, the family arrived at Miyagi-Zao. Checking in and getting situated in the room, the family decided to do a bit of exploring on the island to see the foxes. Says here, Miyagi is home to over 100 foxes that hold a variety of different colors. Not only that, but they have an abundance of rabbits, goats, miniature horses and guinea pigs. Due to a trouble in the past of the area being deemed unpleasant for foxes in high quantities to live in, special fox-quirked individuals as well as floral quirk specialists are hired often to help avoid unhygienic areas, increase the green foliage, and avoid fox fights amongst the animals. Honestly, one of the families of Inari moved here in hopes to keep the place happy and healthy. They don't call this place the cutest place on earth, without trying to keep it in line. Then you must be from the Uraraka clan, my dear, if you know about me. Turning their heads, the family was met by the image of a sweet-looking old man that had a mustache, a cane in his hand and a closed-eye smile on his face. A more notable part about him were two red fox tails that had gray tints in them indicating his age. It is nice to meet you both. My name is Choro and I am the firstborn head of the family protecting this place. Izuku raised an eyebrow looking at the man before asking, but wouldn't the firstborn of an Inari family be a woman? Ordinarily, yes, but I am part of a family where the firstborn is male since our main objective is guarding the island you see here. Though our clan requires us to have 2 children, we still handle the daily duties of a shrine maiden and protector like the other Inari families. Choro walked over to kneel down to Eri's eye level and open his eyes for a moment to look at her. Well, aren't you a lucky child? A family that holds a 9-tailed kitsune is deemed a holy family. And if they were to have a 10-tailed child as well, that would mean Inari holds that family in high regards. 2. Thank you. Eri bowed to the man before several foxes came out of nowhere to circle her. The small girl knelt down to pet them before several went under to pick her up and start moving her into the forest. Is Eri going to be okay? Do not worry, head of Uraraka. The child shall be all right. It is customary for foxes around these parts to take a kitsune under Inari's protection to the shrine in the forest. Consider it a customary tradition since 9 tails is a sign of goddess Inari herself. Choro began walking into the forest in the direction of where Eri went for Ochako to head over with Seiko. Sometimes I forget Eri is literally treated like a goddess in the eyes of Ochako's family lineage. Just wait till she hits puberty and her kitsune powers fully mature. You'll see a true difference then. Glancing down, Izuku was met with the image of Inari's fox form in front of him. It has been a long time. How have you been, Izuku Midoriya? Lady Inari. What or why you doing here? I sensed a presence that will soon be born in this area and decided to meet the woman that will hold the next generation of the Purotekuta clan here. Izuku. Hurry up or you'll be left behind. Coming. Izuku responded back to Ochako before turning back to Inari. Forgive me, Lady Inari, but I need to leave. Do not worry, we will meet again. Izuku ran off with the fox transforming to her normal form with a strange scent catching her attention. It would appear that you may end up giving your clan more children, Izuku. Do make sure you are prepared to satisfy Ochako later and produce a strong male for your family. 2. At the Inari shrine. Returning to the group, Izuku found them in front of a similar shrine that Ochako's family protects as well as a few other people. One was an older woman that seemed to be normal as for quirk-wise, the other was a notably younger woman that looked to be in her 20s giving a dance in front of a shrine. Her body was without a doubt large, but nowhere near as voluptuous as Ochako or her mother's with 3 fox tails and pure black hair. The last two was a man with similar black hair that looked slightly older than the one woman with 4 tails and a woman that had long purple hair with a swollen stomach looking as if she was 8 months pregnant. Kenshin, Hane, could you please come here for one moment? We have guests from our sister clan in Mustafar. The man came over first to greet the two while the fox woman tried to finish her dance and then came over to greet the Midoriya family. Hello, my name is Kenshin. I'm currently the next head of the house of the Purotekuta clan. The man bowed to them holding an enormous build while holding a face as if he was a gentle giant. And I am Hane, the second born and the shrine maiden of the Purotekuta clan. She bowed as well, looking at Eri and Seiko with a bit of desire and jealousy of Ochako from how she had 2 children of her own. I hope that we can hold a good relationship going forward for our clans. So you're the next head of your clan. Kenshin gave his hand to Izuku to shake. It's nice to meet you. Also, when did you get into the clan? A little less than a year ago. So you were fortunate enough to have 2 children of your clan in that short of a time. Hane looked in amazement before trying to calm down a bit. My apologies. I had been trying to find a husband for some time, but none would come around so often. It's okay. Inari will one day give you love. You just have to be patient. Ochako reassured her with this for Choro bringing them over to the side to offer their own respects for the shrine and their goddess. Afterwards, they toured the grounds and explained what was possible for them to do on the island as well as areas where the Inari foxes are more common to hang around as well as the normal foxes that are not tied to them. As this went on, Eri began to have several foxes follow her around and mimic what she was doing to gain a laugh out of everyone. In a blink of an eye, sunset came with the families having to leave. While on the way back, Eri had noticed Ichi leading his own band of foxes almost as if he was their alpha to smile at this. Mommy, I think Ichi has friends now. It looks more like they're following him like he's their leader. Ochako laughed a bit before they got to their hotel to open the door and head inside. When they did, Eri and Seiko were given a bath and put to sleep, leaving Izuku and Ochako to rest on their bed. Well, today was interesting. Yeah, I hope tomorrow we have some more fun. The two laid there before an idea came to the brunette's head. You know, this is our vacation too. We could have a little fun and make Eri and Seiko a baby brother. Feeling a bit of excitement from this, Izuku went closer to Ochako before kissing her and pulling the covers over them to avoid one of their kids to come in and accidentally see something if they were to barge in. The next day came for the Midoriya family with them enjoying breakfast at their hotel room's kitchen table. Eri had been given pancakes by her mother before noticing Izuku looking somewhat tired. Daddy, are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. Your daddy just played a little too rough last night with a vixen. What's a vixen? Ochako kissed her cheek before answering. It's a girl fox. Also, that vixen had quite a fun time last night if you ask me. Ochako pulled her kimono down a bit for her to feed Seiko while giving her husband a sultry look. I'm pretty sure that Fox also wants to do the same thing tonight. Should have figured she'd be this intent on a baby after how hard we tried for Seiko. Then again, I shouldn't really complain about having a sex life. What am I thinking? Izuku banged his head on the table while holding his head in embarrassment. Seeing her father do this, Eri reciprocated the act to get a chuckle out of Ochako. 1. Alright you two, let's get breakfast done and head out. We've got a busy day coming up. Right. Eri gave a cheerful chant with her fist in the air while Izuku did a similar one with less excitement and his fist barely up. Note to self, don't go for 2 baker's dozen during the night and limit it to at least 1. Ochako thought this as she finished feeding Seiko and began her own breakfast. 9. 2 hours later, after completing breakfast and heading out into town, the Midoriya family began glancing around to see what was in the area. As they did, the small family noticed the tourist area was bustling but still rather small compared to most tourist attractions near the city. They looked more like a bunch of festival stands than common stands that people would use for tourist areas. The number of people that were visiting also wasn't exactly insane, with the 4 able to travel around without worrying about bumping into anyone. Hey, you 4, a stand owner called out to them for the Midoriyas to acknowledge him. You're new into town, right? Those are some fancy quirks you all got. 1. Why thank you, sir. Ochako bowed with the man noticing Seiko in her arms. I'm guessing you're part of the Inari lineage, right? We get your kind around here a lot during our fox honoring ceremony. Fox honoring ceremony. It's a big festival where we give thanks to the Purotekuta who protect the foxes here. We make a lot of things to help foxes out during this festival and give them to the foxes as a showing of our appreciation for allowing us on their land. Fascinating. So what is there that we should look into? Izuku asked. Well, there's fox biscuits that you and the kids could make together. My neighbor always does that and it's a big hit for the kids or even teenagers like yourselves since it's fun and everyone can join. My sister does a fox blessing charm that she brings up to the shrine and has the head priestess bless. They can be something between ones for romance, luck or even fertility if you get lucky enough to have one of them. From what she says, it's like a 1 in 1,000 chance you'd get one of them. Daddy, look, Eri pointed at what looked like wooden flutes on the man's table. You got a nice eye, little lady. These are fox flutes. I carve each one out of wood that a fox I took care of as a pup brings me as a hobby and sell them here as a gift to the people. I'm not entirely sure where he gets the branches, but I like to think Inari brings him the branches and gives them to me just so I can whittle. Feel free to pick one for yourself that suits your fancy. Well, you heard the nice man. Izuku picked Eri up to hold her above the stand to see the wooden flutes. Why don't you see which one you want? Eri looked at the flutes to see some with different carvings where the mouthpieces of animals. Seeing a white flute of a bear, Eri points to it to get Izuku's attention. That one. It looks like Kumasi. Okay then. Izuku pays for the flute and places Eri on the ground with the flute. Why don't you try blowing into it, sweetheart? Eri looked down at the flute before looking up at Izuku who showed her how to hold the flute the way she should. Once she realized it, she began to close her eyes and breathe into the flute. As Eri played, the three adults looked at her somewhat surprised she was able to play something so easily. Does she have any practice with flutes? None that we're aware of. Ochako mentioned with people walking over to watch Eri play. Little did they know, several other guests came out of nowhere to watch as well. Multiple foxes sat in a circle around the small child, preventing anyone but Izuku, Ochako and Seiko to be any closer than a meter away from her. As she finished, everyone around her clapped with the foxes howling in happiness. Both Ochako and Izuku looked at one another beyond amazed at what they just witnessed. Well, I guess Eri had a hidden talent we weren't aware of. Beyond a talent, she's a born prodigy. Ochako stared blankly as Seiko smiled and clapped her hands. Nice work. Wow, I didn't expect that. Congrats kid. Here. The man gave Eri a 500 yen coin and pointed towards a stand. That man over there has sheet music for foxes. Tell him Paul sent you and that you're the one that played that music. Okay, thank you. Eri grabbed the coin and bowed before heading to her parents. Following the man's advice, the family went to the stand to grab the music and continue their journey. As they did, the family had agreed to do some of the things the man at the first stand did to find a biscuit decorating stand. Izuku had helped Eri decorate one while making a similar one himself. Meanwhile, the owner of the stand gave a small bowl for Seiko to stick her hand in and press against a biscuit. Seeing it happen, the infant began laughing with Kurama coming out of nowhere to sit on the side of the infant. Once finished, Ochako gave Izuku the biscuit she made to have it read, "Baker's dozen tonight," to make Izuku blush red before Ochako passed her fox treat to a fox nearby. Once they finished up at the biscuit shop, the family went towards the stand holding blessing charms. The shop owner noticed her brother's flute to smile at the family before offering a chance for them to pick out a charm. Eri had gone first to grab one of the unlabeled containers. Once she did this, Izuku and Ochako grabbed one themselves with the three opening them at the same time to show what they have. Yay, I get luck. Eri was overjoyed with Izuku going next. What did you get? Success. You. Ochako pulled hers up with a smile on her face. Fertility. Izuku laughed slightly before seeing Ochako come close to him and kiss his lips. We'll be needing this tonight. A deep red blush was on his face as images of their current nightly events rushed back into the OFA user's head. Something tells me that she had help getting that one. 4. Later that evening, after visiting the grounds as well as seeing the foxes that lived on the island again, the Midoriya family had begun heading back to their hotel before seeing some lanterns coming with a circle of torches being made in the center of the town. Well, this looks interesting. What's going on here? It's the final part of the tradition. The group turned around to see Kenshin in a ceremonial outfit for him to dance in, as well as a hat that held a shroud over it to cover his face with a black cloth. What do you mean by that? Simple. During the end of the fox honoring ceremony, I perform a dance as the head of my house at the end of the festival. This symbolizes the Purotekuta family respecting the offerings the townspeople have given and wishes to thank them. Once this is done, the people will give the foxes in the area rice biscuits and fried tofu as a means of sharing their hospitality to all the foxes of the island. Izuku was baffled at what was said to hold a look of amazement. Seems like a great way to end a festival. It truly is. A horn was heard in the distance for Kenshin to hear it and begin to worry. I gotta go. I'll talk to you and your family after the ceremony. Kenshin ran out into the distance with Izuku somewhat interested about the ceremony that was about to take place now. Anyone else wanna see the ceremony? It's part of this clan of Inari's worship, so I would think it would be rude if we didn't. Ochako mentioned with Eri, somewhat curious as well. Alright then, I'm gonna get a few snacks before everything starts. Ochako, do you and Eri wanna find a seat for us? Great idea. Izuku headed to the nearby stand with the fox mother adjusting her hold of Seiko. She bent down to Eri with a smile. Why don't we try and get a seat up close so we can get a great view? Okay. The three went towards the area where the torches were. As they did, they noticed a few of the guys managing the setup having an argument. I can't believe you forgot to get the foxfire from the Shrine Maiden. That's part of the ceremony. Don't blame this on me. I got the torches primed for the evening and made sure they had plenty of sage to burn. That was your job. I spent the last 3 hours making sure the ground was level and able to have the performance. Damn it, this is gonna be easily an hour trip if we go now. Do we have a choice? If we don't, we can't do the tradition properly. As they were arguing, Ochako and Eri overheard them and felt a little bad. Ochako was about to go up, but noticed Seiko was about to sneeze. Achoo! The loud sneeze was heard with a shot of blue fire being sent directly towards one of the unlit torches. 2. The heck? Both men looked over to see Ochako, Eri and Seiko with the infant having a bit of snot coming down her nose. Ochako quickly got a small tissue to help her daughter with both of the guys staring at her completely confused. Ma'am, did your baby just? She did. Congrats Seiko, you just made your first foxfire. I wish your daddy could have seen it. Wait, so that girl is able to make foxfire. By any chance, are the two of you part of the Inari clan? Ochako nodded with both guys letting out a deep sigh of relief. You and your family are real lifesavers, ma'am. Yeah, if you didn't light the flames, we'd have to make the trek back to the shrine to get a female foxfire for the ceremony. How can we ever repay you? Just make sure you give a nice ceremony to Goddess Inari on your part and we shall not have to worry. Ochako had noticed a few seats near the side and brought Eri and Seiko there to sit and wait for Izuku. A few minutes passed with Izuku coming back holding some snacks for everyone. Nice spot. He noticed a smile on Ochako's face for the green-haired boy to question it. Anything interesting happen? Seiko used her first foxfire. That's great. Unsure if this is good or not, Ochako leaned close to Ochako to ask. Is that great? 4. Yes. Most of the time, foxfire doesn't show itself in Inari's lineage until they're 2. That means our daughter's truly blessed by Inari to hold her powers at such an early age. Izuku glanced down at Seiko and rubbed her head a bit while smiling. Congratulations, sweetie. Seiko smiled at the touch of her father and reached out for him. All right, hold on. Izuku passed snacks he brought for Eri to her before doing a pass-off with Ochako for her snacks and Seiko. Upon getting in her father's arms, the infant nuzzled her head into his arm and slowly drifted off to sleep. Well, isn't that adorable? Ochako went into her pocket to grab her phone and take a picture of what was happening and sent it to her mother with the caption, Seiko loves her daddy, on it. 1. The lights around the area started to go out for everyone to begin quieting down. This is kinda exciting. Seiko panicked a bit as she woke up to hold her father's shirt. It's okay. They're just getting ready for the ceremony. The last of the lights went out, with the only source being the torches lit by Foxfire. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for your support of our clan for another year. Kenshin walked out of the shadows to stand in the center of the circle of torches. Every year on this day, we honor Inari with her constant blessings to us by the festivities that are held to thank her fox followers for being our protectors. But by night, this special dance, lit by her female followers, fire with the performance you are about to see done by her male followers. In one hand, the fox head held what looked like a branch as well as a baton with one side filled with bells on the other. And now, please watch and enjoy as I perform the ceremonial dance that my family had done before me for generations. Kenshin stood with his legs square and his arms down. In a quick motion, he held his arms up and paused before holding them wide out. The fox man began moving his feet after to a rhythmic stomp with his arms moving as well. The rhythm enchanted both Eri and Ochako to watch and keep from looking away. Even Seiko, who was in a sound sleep before, watched intently. As they continued to observe, a fox hopped on Izuku's shoulder and spoke to him. Quite the performance, isn't it? 1. Lady, shish, you don't want to disturb everyone. Inari motioned to Ochako and Eri silently at the ceremony as if they were in a trance. This ceremony is the family's way to appease me. However, this actually gives different effects to mature members of my followers that aren't males of the clans. What does it do? Kenshin began dancing faster with Inari explaining. For the children, all it does is give them a trance similar to as if they were watching a television. Incoherent to what others say unless they outspeak what is happening. Women who are able to bear children and have a lover already in our clan, it acts similar to an aphrodisiac to them. Oh crumbs. 3. Indeed. I hope you are prepared for tonight with what she has witnessed. Inari teleported off of Izuku's shoulder, with the dance ending with Kenshin stopping all the torches immediately. Everyone cheered for this, with Ochako holding Izuku close to her, pushing her breasts up against him. Izuku, can we please start heading home? I'm starting to feel a little warm. Sure, let me head to a shop and grab something before we do. The family began walking to a convenience store to grab an energy drink. At the counter, Izuku looked at the cashier and gave him a serious question. What's the best energy drink you've got for a ham nightly things? How intense is the performance? Izuku pointed near Ochako, who looked like a teapot ready to blow steam. If it's a kitsune, I suggest this one. The cashier passed what was called fox heat to him. Trust me when I say you'll need this. 1. Thanks. The family headed out of the store with the cashier smirking while watching them head out. I hope those two are ready for another baby at the end of all this. The doors opened again for a few foxes to head in and sit in front of the cashier. Why hello, and what can I do for you little fellas? Yip. 1. All right. The man bent down to grab a few biscuits he had for the festival to give foxes and held them out. Here ya go. The foxes grabbed them and bowed their heads before running out of the store. I love this time of year. The foxes are so hospitable during this festival and so darn adorable. After returning to their hotel, Izuku began tucking Eri in as well as placing Seiko down in her portable crib. Daddy, is mommy okay? She was acting weird tonight. Don't worry Eri, your mother's just enjoying herself on this trip and was a little overwhelmed tonight. Once the morning comes, I'm sure that she'll be back to normal. Okay. Izuku leaned forward and kissed Eri's forehead before standing up and heading towards the door. Good night Daddy. Izuku smiled before placing a night light on and turning to Eri, who quickly had a notable amount of foxes jump into the bed. Good night Snowball. Good night Seiko. Good night. However many foxes are on the bed. As he said this, multiple more came out from under the bed to start making it difficult to find out where Eri was on the bed. Turning now downwards, Izuku looked at Kurama. You were able to soundproof the walls. Yes. The small fox stared at Izuku before looking lower and giving a salute. I honor your groin, my soon-to-fall brother. 10. Can we not talk about this like I'm going to die? Kurama ignored this and began walking in and cuddling up to Seiko. Taking one final look, Izuku slowly shut the door not to disturb anyone before walking back to his room. There, he noticed Ochako was nowhere to be found to shut the door and walk in. Ochako, you in here. Eri and Seiko are asleep now, so, before he could finish, the fox woman grabbed a hold of Izuku's torso from behind and pressed him into her bare chest. Good, because I can't take not doing anything about this heat anymore. I want you to mount me, Izuku, and not stop until the morning. Knowing how she gets during their times together, Izuku turned to face Ochako, who immediately put him in a lip lock before pushing him onto the bed. After cleaning up and regaining some composure, Izuku and Ochako left their room and began making breakfast for everyone. As they did, Eri began walking out holding Seiko in her arms, who was starting to cry. Daddy. Seiko wants attention from you. Oh, do you now? Izuku grabbed the small infant from his daughter for Seiko to stare at him and smile. That's my girl. Eri. Why don't you come and sit down next to me? Your daddy's almost done with breakfast. Ochako motioned for the small fox girl to look at Ochako for a moment. Mommy. Why is Daddy more excited today, and why are you sitting down like that? She asked, noticing Ochako not moving her legs at all and avoiding any lower half movements. Let's just say your mommy and daddy did something that she always outlasts and wins against your daddy, and he finally outlasted me last night. Oh. Congratulations, Daddy. Izuku smiled at this with Kurama hopping up on the counter to stare at the OFA user. You used Fox Heat, didn't you? You know the brand? It's a brand made specifically for humans to outlast Kitsune, which Lady Inari makes to have her subjects be satisfied. Is it dangerous? Not if you count being able to make your wife temporarily paralyzed as well as using up almost all the protein in your body it can use at the time dangerous. Word of advice. Eat a lot of protein today. Kurama hopped off the counter with the fact Izuku's craving of steak and eggs being a little more understanding now. Well, that explains the desire for red meat. Hey Ochako, how hungry are you? Hungry enough to have a second baby in me already. Got it. Pregnant fox woman breakfast. The end of the vacation trip came for the small family, as so the time came for Izuku, Ochako, Eri and Seiko to begin their journey back to Ua. Upon arrival at the gates, the four were met by Aizawa, who was waiting for them. Did you four have a fun trip? 1. It was very fun. We got to see a lot of foxes and they carried me like a princess. Eri smiled at this with the sleepy teacher raising an eyebrow to her parents. 1. 9-tailed Kyubis are deemed a blessing, and it's even more of a case for Eri in the simplest way to explain it. Ochako explained, looking somewhat frustrated for some reason. Did we miss anything special? Nothing in particular. The provisional though is next week, and I don't think either one of you will have a problem passing. The fact one of you can literally summon a demon fox makes that point painfully clear, and the other can fight a giant fox that is skilled enough to wield a katana. Your point? Tiny came out of nowhere to stand beside Aizawa, who gave a vacant stare. My point is, I doubt there's going to be issues with you all by missing the mandatory special moves training, since you all kinda already have some. However, I would like the two of you to show me what type of special moves you would use in the provisional, since it is somewhat an important exam. Oh. Cool. What happens if we pass the provisional? Izuku asked while carrying a large amount of their luggage. If you do, you'll be able to intervene in incidents like a normal pro hero. It's a step towards becoming a hero, and I'd recommend you focus on passing it as soon as possible. Also, you'll be facing second years, so it's imperative you don't overestimate yourself. Understood, sir. Both Ochako and Izuku mentioned as they continue their journey back to the dorms. Upon walking through the overpass, Ochako opens the door to see a fight between Bakugo and a bunch of the guys happen. Bakugo. Release Kirishima's pineapple at once. The family looked at Bakugo inhaling an unpeeled pineapple with only the top part sticking out to confuse them. 7. Do I want to know why Kachin has a pineapple in his mouth and is eating its skin and all? Kirishima was talking about how a motto with pineapple is when you bite it bites you back, and Bakugo fought him on this, saying when you peel off its armor to shove it in his mouth as a way to say, this is how you eat a pineapple, to Kirishima. 2. Ochako and Izuku were amazed how dumb of a reason Bakugo had to do this, as to what Sue explained for the fox mother to ignore this and place the luggage near the side. I'm not dealing with yelling the first minute I'm back. She passed Seiko to Izuku before walking up to Bakugo. In one hit, Ochako punched the ash blonde in the stomach to knock the pineapple out of his mouth, tail bitch slap him into the ground, and turned to Kirishima with the pineapple in her hands. I believe this is yours. Thanks. Kirishima took the pineapple with Ochako going to the couch to sit with her legs over the armrest. Wow, Ochako. You look ticked. What's wrong? Didn't get enough fun from Mido on your trip? Ashido began laughing with Ochako staring back. No, I can tell you right now that I doubt Izuku would even perish the thought of cheating on me. I'm a little irritated because for the last few days, I've been given enough of Izuku where I'm practically bathing in his love. This was especially true over the last few days when we found some kind of specialty drink given to members of the Inari followers so the husbands can perform their duty of giving their lovers children properly. I think you're being overdramatic. Juru stated with Ochako pulling her phone out to scroll down some pictures before showing one with her naked in a bathtub filled with spunk they believed was Izuku's. The girls looked at Ochako and then at Izuku trying to make certain neither one of them were pulling their leg. Neither married spouse showed reason to judge this for all 5 girls to stare at Izuku. What? I have a hickey somewhere or something. Don't just denounce this. What the heck, man? This is inhuman. You have me there, Hagakure, but then again, I don't know what to tell you but the drink I used for this wasn't normal. Nobody would believe it was if this is what the quantity is. All 5 turned to Ochako next with Yayorozu commenting next. The fact you aren't pregnant yet is a miracle all on its own. That reminds me, Mineta tried to sneak into your room again. He said something about finding a woman that had a body just like you but with 9 tails before she mutated into a giant 9-tailed fox. Do either of you understand what he meant? Izuku thought for a second before seeing a small white 9-tailed fox walk down from the girl's side. Okay. Where the heck did that fox come from now? That one's been here since you left and it comes out of nowhere. Calling me an it is a little insulting if we are honest. The fox sat on the table in front of everyone for everyone to stop what they were doing to stare at the small fox. Oh please, am I truly the most unique thing here? Okay. Why the fuck do we have a talking fox here? Tiny immediately smacked Bakugo to the ground before getting on his hands and knees to bow. 2. My apologies for this oaf, Lady Inari. He does not know who you are and should be properly informed. You are a kind servant, Tiny. The Uraraka family must be proud to have you as a member of their house. The fox began altering its shape to resemble that of a human. Her eyes opened to show a golden image for everyone to panic outside of the Midoriya family. Hello, Izuku. You are looking more lively today. Hello, Lady Inari. Thank you for the compliment. Your fur is looking very healthy today as always. Oh my, such a smooth talker you are. No wonder why my own child finds you a great person to be around. Wait, did Midoriya just say that this fox is Ochako's goddess from her beliefs? Juru asked for Izuku to smile at her. That's right. She's also Aries' biological mother and the leader of all the foxes under the Inari Shrine's watch. Nobody wanted to say anything as they were in absolute shock over finding out they have an actual deity in their dormitory right now. So what do we owe the pleasure for your appearance to everyone other than us? I wished to see my daughter and see how your creation of a male member of our family is going. It's going well, Lady Inari, but I do have one question. Ochako bowed before continuing. Izuku and I have been trying quite hard to conceive a child, but we do not seem to have the ability to. It isn't a lack of trying, but it seems to be more of a matter of my body just cannot conceive. I do not wish to assume you are at fault for this, but I do genuinely wish to know if I am doing something wrong so that. Oh my dear, you are not doing anything wrong. I am simply trying to withhold your fertility for a short while. Wait, you can do something like that? Kirishima asked for it to receive an irritated stare from the fox goddess. I am a goddess of fertility. My loyal followers are able to become fertile because of me. I'm also the reason why your slobber-covered pineapple is able to be. That reminds me, why was there a boy the size of a child trying to enter into your room? Why was he? Everyone stared at Kaminari, who was the only person that actually still talked to Mineta among the class. Oh come on. You think I'm the one at fault for letting him in your room? He said he had to take a dump before he ran out screaming about a fox going to eat him with a horde of foxes going after him with katanas and machetes. I'm amazed he's even alive. Some of them looked like they meant business. 3. I only wish I'd have seen the terror on his face. Ochako smiled evilly with no girl having anything less than a mild smirk that the school pervert had what he had coming to him. Any chance you can make him infertile by any chance, my lady? The boy had done that on his own by his constant forms of self-indulgent. Ochako shivered a bit thinking about this before Inari continued where she left off. Back to where I was. I had merely held back your fertility as a way to help assist your husband. Believe me when I say, his acts are beginning to pile up on him and I fear he may have some long-term problems if you were to have another child so early. 1. Izuku. I'm so sorry I didn't know. Izuku patted his wife's head for her tails to wag a little for Eri to hop off her seat and go up to Inari. Is what daddy says true? Are you my real mommy? Inari patted Eri's head before smiling. I had given you life in this world, yes. However, the right of mother belongs to Ochako. Though she did not give birth to you, she is able to be to you what I cannot. Though you are not mine, I still love you as Ochako loves you. Oh. Eri felt a little down knowing she couldn't be with her birth mother a little before having her chin raised by the fox deity's hand. Do not feel sad, for even though I cannot forever be with you on this plane of existence, you shall be just like me when your physical body naturally meets its end. An all-powerful deity. Really, yes, my dear, but until then, I feel most comfortable leaving you in the hands of the Midoriya family. Eri ran over to hug Ochako and Izuku to earn an awe from everyone. Wait, but why were you here? Don't you have better things to do besides walk around this dormitory? Iida asked before Inari pointed at Momo. I like her biscuits. I also bless the rooms of all those here that protect and treat my fox kin like their own. Inari then turned to Bakugo with a death glare. 3. What, you gonna pick a fight with me for MMPH? A cloth came over his mouth by a few larger foxes around Tiny's size without his bulk. 1. The only reason I haven't let my brother take your soul yet is because you were at least nice to my daughter. I would rather you not pick fights with my smallest follower though. Kitsu has done nothing to warrant your rage. Yip, yip, Kitsu shouts in agreement for the ash blonde to glare down at him. Anyway, I have just finished my work here, so I shall take my leave. Inari got up and began walking towards a door. However, she stopped to look down at Seiko smiling with Kurama sitting beside her. A blessing and one of my most rambunctious sons watching over her. Truly a fascinating family. Inari opened the door to the restroom for it to show a giant field of rice grains and humanoid foxes tilling them before shutting the door. Once Zero walked to the door to open it back up, all he saw was the toilet stalls and sinks inside. Okay. That was kinda cool. 3. Lady Inari does know how to make an exit. Ochako got up after replying to Shinzo, who was wide-eyed for the whole ordeal. So in short, Inari is keeping us from having a child until things begin to settle down for you. That's nice of her in its own way. I'd rather you be healthy as well, Izuku. Ochako bent down to bring Izuku into a kiss for the guys to feel mostly impressed by the fox woman's boldness while the girls felt somewhat envious. I'll start unpacking if you want to relax on the couch with Seiko and Eri. Izuku began getting up before seeing several foxes start carrying their things to their room. Or a den or two of foxes could do it. I swear, you two are the most unusual couple I have ever met and my mom's an invisible psychiatrist. Hagakure points this out while sitting beside Kota, who had several of the foxes relaxing on his lap and shoulders to put him at mild peace. About a day passed with Izuku and Ochako finding out about what Inari had been doing for the two to return to their normal life. Eri, as a way to get her to where she needs to be for knowledge, was given the chance to learn with Principal Nezu. The rodent man though wasn't all that fond of having a fox try and attack him, so Ichi and the rest of the foxes had to remain out of the room while they taught one another. Tiny, though, decided due to it being as he said, his sworn duty as a servant of Lady Inari to aid those of her servitude in need, with Nezu accepting the help. Right now, the group of Class A is sitting in the classroom with most waiting with their costumes in hand. So what happened while we were away? Izuku turned to Shinso, who seemed to be extremely tired. We've been training for the provisional that's in 3 days. Wait, we're taking an exam in 3 days and nobody said anything to us. Relax, Midoriya. Aizawa opened the door and walked in to explain why he wasn't told anything. Due to your training with your wife's family and All Might, the school thinks you're more than ready with what you've shown us of your own personal skills. Just continue training yourself as you've been doing and I doubt you will have any troubles. Your wife on the other hand. The underground crow stared at Ochako, who was more preoccupied holding Seiko. Unlike everyone else, we have yet to see how powerful you may be, so I highly recommend that you train a little today and show us just what you actually can do, as both in combat as well as in a scenario where you could create a special move. Fair enough. So where shall we head? Training ground Gamma. Everyone else will lead the way. Aizawa walked out of the room and gave everyone the green light to head down to the field. Once leaving, Seiko noticed Izuku reaching out for him to hold her. Ah, do you want to be held by your daddy? Come here, sweetie. Ochako passed Seiko off to Izuku with the small fox infant to wrap herself in a ball and sleep in Izuku's arms. Isn't that a defensive position that humans shouldn't be in naturally? Hagakure asked, for Ochako to explain. It's her fox nature. Foxes do sleep in this way just like most other animals. It's a way to regulate their heat and keep them at their body temp. Ochako smelled something in the air before staring at Izuku. She also just went if you wanna change her. She knows who to go to when she needs to go. Alright, tell Mr. Aizawa I'll be running a little behind because of a certain someone. Izuku stared down in a joking look at Seiko, who was happily trying to gum her hand and showed a shocked face. 3. Everyone laughed with Izuku leaving the room and the girls circling together. You gotta love how dependable Mito is. Parenthood does him good. Mina smirks before looking at Ochako. Any chance you might have a brother or someone your age that's looking for a wife? If your stamina is a family trait, then I'm not setting you up with a member of the Inari bloodline just because you want a good sex life. Get your mind out of the gutter. Ochako walks off somewhat annoyed by the suggestion, with Mina shrugging her shoulders. On field Gamma, Ochako began stretching with her kimono pulling a little to show off her body a little. She cracked her neck a bit as Ectoplasm's clone stood in front of her. Are you ready? Yes, I have something I'd like to try and see if it's possible to do something long distance for me. Upon saying this, Ochako holds out her tails and lights the tips with fox fire. This intrigues everyone as the flames slowly grow brighter and the temperature is felt by the class, several feet away from her. Soon enough, Ochako sends the attack to the clone with a massive blast of fire happening immediately after, as well as a blinding light. When the flash dulls down, the image of a completely incinerated area where Ectoplasm's clone was is noticed for everyone to be a little creeped out by it. Well, I guess I should have held back a little. She laughs at this, with nobody being fond at all with what just happened. Soon enough, Bakugo walks up to the front of the crowd to stare at Ochako. Are you going to give me some sassy comment about you being the best now, Bakugo? I'm pretty sure my husband can put you in your place where the gap should be known. Fight me. And when I say this, fight me seriously. Everyone was a little confused by this as Ochako said once again what she just did. You do realize you're far weaker than me, where the gap between us is beyond anything you can comprehend. I know, but I want to see that gap. Why? So I have a sight of what I should reach for. This remark raised an eyebrow to everyone in the room. To make matters simple, I know you're stronger than me whether I want to admit to that or not. However, knowing where you are and where I stand compared to your position right now is something I want to know myself. I know I'm going to get my ass kicked, and I don't care. I need to know where I stand in strength to you so I can be strong enough to beat those I need to in the future. 6. Seeing the determination in his eyes, Ochako smirked before answering. You have yourself a fight, Bakugo. 1. Ochako. You don't have to appease his desires for a fight. Izuku tried to get Ochako to reconsider for her to ignore it and smile. I'm not appeasing him. I just wanna see what he can do with a little training under his belt. Everyone cleared the area to give the two plenty of room. The air around the two made it known that this wasn't their normal fights. This was serious and both were willing to take it as such. When one of you isn't able to continue, it's over. We'll also stop it if things get out of hand. And in Midoriya's case, you'll have your husband stop you. Aizawa proclaims with Izuku staring at him. Don't give me that. You honestly think any of us have a shot at stopping her outside of you? Izuku wanted to argue, but stopped knowing his teacher was right to some degree. Ectoplasm spoke up for them to start with the fight immediately going underway. Bakugo came directly at Ochako to start with her rolling her eyes. Is that honestly the best you've got? With her one tail, She tried to smack Bakugo away like she normally does for him to evade it. Okay, you gained some evasiveness and speed. She attacked with 2 more of her tails for Bakugo to pull out of her range and aim with his one hand covering an almost enclosed fist of his others opening near him. AP shot. A barrage of small blasts came to Ochako with her immediately dodging them and readjusting her footing. I've got more for ya. AP rapid fire. The attacks came much faster now with Ochako holding her 5 tails out. 5-tail Fox Inferno. The balls of Fox fire came at the attack for them to collide and create a massive smokescreen around to make the result a stalemate. Alright, that's not bad, Baku. I got you now. Bakugo came at Ochako with an explosion for her to pull to the side, but not fast enough to have a small cut happen on her cheek. The two pulled away from one another for Ochako to wipe her cheek and see a small bit of blood. I don't know if I should be impressed or angered that you are the second to draw blood on me. First obviously being Izuku. Everyone looked at Izuku for a moment before Ochako explained. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand what I meant by that. Also, it isn't a complicated picture since Seiko's in his arms. Now, where were we? A dark smile came on Ochako's face as she began letting loose a massive presence able to make some of the class scared to get any closer. 1. Guess it's all or nothing now. Bakugo went up into the air and began creating explosions around with his quirk to spin. As he spun, he kept adding momentum with his explosions to go faster and faster until all that was seen was a tornado of fire coming right at Ochako. Now this looks fun. I think I'll use a trick from Izuku's book. Ochako pulled her arm back with Fox fire engulfing it. To add a little help counterbalancing the spiraling flames around Bakugo, the Fox woman moved the flames in a rotation to the left. Time to see what you're really made of. Fox fire smash. Howitzer impact. The two collided to make a massive explosion of energy with a blinding light, preventing all present to see the final attack's result. This is nuts. Just how powerful is Ochako? Izuku stared calmly at the attack with Seiko's face being covered so she wouldn't have something hit her in the eyes. As the attack stopped, the only image left among the two was Ochako in a position showing she threw a punch with the entire arm of her hero costume singed off and her arm looking a little pink as if it was a little burned. Okay, there's one. Where'd Bakugo go? A sound of something crumbling gained everyone's attention for them to look up and see Bakugo indented into the ceiling before falling down on the ground to make a hard thud. Most winced in pain with Kirishima a little surprised. I'm kinda shocked he's in one piece. That was definitely not a good hit. 1. Walking to where he wasn't, Ochako knelt down to try and talk to Bakugo face to face. She noticed the indent on his cheek from where she hit in the partially conscious state to know he'd barely have any energy to fight back. I'll admit, that attack was quite impressive. I may have to watch out for it next time if you keep honing it to something admirable. Bakugo stared at Ochako for a moment before flipping her off. Fuck you, Fox bitch. He passed out after saying this for Ochako to scowl a little. 1. You can't take a compliment, can you? Fair enough. I showed you my respect, so that settles that. Ochako stood up and walked towards Izuku who had Seiko try to reach for her mother. Nice job. That was nothing. Personally, I think you could have handled that if anything, so don't think he's amazing to do that. Ochako bluntly states for everyone to know what happened was without a doubt amazing on either side you look. Nobody could actually scratch Ochako and Bakugo had felt the force of Ochako fighting when they didn't know her true limits. Now then, why don't we enjoy some time at the dorms after picking up Eri? Ochako walked off with Izuku in tow for Aizawa to stare at the destruction that was caused. If her stamina's as good as this damage, then I give Midoriya too little credit. As they spoke, Vlad King and the rest of Class B came in to see the destruction. Upon asking, Aizawa only said they have now some form of a max with Ochako to have the blood manipulating quirk user shiver a bit seeing how much chaos she could make if she was angered. This field's now Class B's. Let's get out of their hair. Class A agreed with some of the students going to pick up Bakugo and bring him to the infirmary as everyone was still shaken to question how strong their classmate really is. Eri and Ochako sat in the common space of the dorms with some strange older books in front of them. The Fox mother seemed to be reading off of them as Eri did her best to listen as much as possible. On August 29th, our shrine maidens offer Inari an offering of prayer and renewity. This will be the only time in our lives that the current shrine maidens will have the ability to cleanse the shrines we worship. This is to offer renewity and life into our lineage in a form cleaning away any foul spirits that are retained from the year. But why is cleaning the shrine any other time of the year considered bad? Eri asked for Ochako to pat her head. Because our objective isn't the shrine, it's the offering. The head of the house is responsible for maintenance. If the shrine maiden at the time does not have a husband, we wait and hold out for the person who wishes to maintain our shrine with little to no personal gain from it. This is deemed our family's greatest blessing since we believe Inari brings us these men as a way to thank us for our constant offering and protection of her people. Ochako explains this while petting Kitsu on the sofa with them, who was half asleep and smiled at the sensation. As such, it is our job as shrine maidens to marry this man as a thank you for their appeasement of Inari. So I'm guessing the cleaning of the shrine is like saying the man is trying to retain the purity of the shrine itself, since you said that the shrine maidens clean it once a year for that reason. Izuku asked, sitting in a chair while holding Seiko in his hands and bouncing her on his knee. Exactly. Then what does the horny stuff you do with Deku consist of? Bakugo asked as some other members of the class had been listening to Ochako explain their religion to Eri. I've been wondering that as well. You act more like a dog in heat than a fox shrine maiden. Yaoyorozu mentions while rubbing a fox's stomach. Also, aren't we past the heat cycle for foxes? There shouldn't be a reason you're doing this as much as you are. 1. That's a different reason that I'm amazed you all aren't realizing it yet. Everyone looked at Ochako for her to sigh in annoyance. Fertility. We worship a goddess of fertility. Fertility means healthy crops and making babies depending on how you take it. Inari in our culture represents both. Having a lively house is something that is highly respected in our culture and is looked at as a strong cultural heritage for us. The more children we have, the happier we make Inari. So your religion encourages you to get pregnant as many times as possible. Ochako nods at Ishido for her to jokingly make a claim to Kirishima. Maybe I should join it. You'd enjoy that, wouldn't you? 1. Mina. Not in public. Kirishima blushed a bit with her laughing it off. Our culture refuses outsiders from coming in unless they are married into it. If you were to be part of the Inari lineage, you'd be married to a male of the family and be requested and somewhat required as to keep the line going, to bear children of that man. Also, if you're not committed to this, you are killed on the spot by several of Inari's foxes and devoured. Inari takes your commitment to our lineage very seriously and won't accept half-baked commitment. A chill ran down everyone's spine hearing this as a response to how they would die if Inari didn't find them worthy of being part of a family. Kinda makes me wonder why she thought I was worthy. I genuinely thought the entire thing was someone throwing a prank on me that was going a little overboard. A lot of the men in our family thought that, but Inari probably saw something in you that she didn't with those that would normally think this. Commitment. We need to make sure our new family members understand that this isn't like any other marriage where if things don't work out, you can get a divorce. We need to have men that understand you're in our family, so you must stand by your lover through thick and thin. So the fox chick probably knew that Deku would be too much of a pussy to back out. Ha! Bakugo laughed at this for Tiny to come behind him and smack him hard enough to send him to the floor. What the fuck? 5. Language. Everyone shouted back at the ash blonde before Tiny gave his reasoning. 1. Do not insult Lady Inari or the young master like that. Trying to get back on topic, Ishido continued to ask questions. So to make a long story short, Inari gauges every possible man or woman that comes into the family, and if they aren't willing to commit themselves to the lineage, they die. You're also highly suggested to have children, and as many at a young age. So, serious question. Why don't you have brothers or sisters? Easy. Inari's drawback on us and our increased fertility. Everyone stared at Ochako before she explained. Members of the Inari family are given an increased fertility rate for the females. As such, we are more capable of being pregnant. This however comes with a major drawback. Due to the increased ability to produce offspring, I will succumb to infertility before I reach 25. My parents met at 24, so my family's shrine was on the verge of dying before I was even born. Wow, the more I learn of your family, the more amazed I am. Izuku stood a little dumbfounded that something like this was a thing. That's unfortunately our drawback. We can have children much faster than a normal woman, as well as our bodies are made to have children in our teenage years the same way an adult woman can, but that also decreases our time of possible pregnancy. Chances of me having a child after I reach the age I told you is roughly about 1 in a million. So your goddess doesn't agree to later pregnancies in your 30s? Shoji asked, trying to understand why this was a thing. Not exactly. You see, the prime time for someone to get pregnant and recover with little to no after effects is in their 20s. Unfortunately, that would mean there is some hindrance with the current shrine maiden before the next takes their place. Let's say for an example one has a child at 25. I took over my mother's task as shrine maiden when I was almost done with puberty at the age of 14. About a year before I met Izuku. As such, the status of shrine maiden would be given with the original being almost 40. Our job is to retain the youth and joy of it in our acts of worship. Some of our acts require nimbility, which is lost as you grow older. By the time you're in your late 30s, your joints begin to move nowhere as nimble as when you were half your age. As such, we try to avoid having shrine maidens past the age of 30 tend to the shrine if we can stop it for safety reasons. To be honest, I would have continued to tend to the shrine as I went to school if this was not a dormitory school. Thankfully my mother has kept her figure after me almost exactly, with only minor deterioration where her handling it for another 3 years wouldn't be a problem. But even if I am not able to complete my tasks as our family's shrine maiden, as the official current shrine maiden, it's my obligation to continue teaching my children so they can continue mine and my family's lifelong legacy. And I thought traditional values were dead. Jiro asked for Ochako to pinch the bridge of her nose. Destroying traditional values does nothing but breed insubordination within a family and society in general. Yes, you can choose to do away with them if you desire, but that doesn't mean you should. If my family wanted to no longer follow Inari, we would lose every ounce of grace she has given us thus far. That includes our land, bountiful harvests, possibly our lineage. The bottom line I want to point out is, I want to keep it alive because it's important to me and my family, and I'm more than willing to share the information with Eri and Seiko when our daughter is old enough to understand it. As they spoke, the sound of a large fart was heard for everyone to look towards the source to see Seiko with a somewhat relaxed smile. Something tells me you left one heck of a mess for me to clean, didn't you? Seiko smiled at her father while reaching out for his face. You're a stinky little fox right now, but you are a cute one. He got up and began walking to the bathroom for Ochako to continue on with where she was. 1. Any other questions about my religion or why I want to have as many babies with Izuku as possible? I got one. What if you or one of your family members were raped? Would Inari force you to carry that child to terms? Why do you want to know about that? I do not wish to know, Zero. To answer your question though, no. If one were to ever try to defile a shrine maiden outside of wedlock, Inari would first off force an army of foxes to kill the man. After, his entire family lineage would be erased from existence. I do not know of any who were stupid enough to ever try it, but my grandmother was unfortunately about to be when she was the shrine maiden. My mother said that this was not long after she was born, and let's just say, the missing persons report files went cold, and what they could possibly use to help find out what happened was passed through some foxes after about an hour and a half. Ew. Forget what I asked. Mommy, what does this mean? Eri asked while holding up an old art portrait of a shrine maiden dancing. It's one of our family's dances. It's an extremely important to us when it comes to the new year. The first morning after, we hold a dance that is quite difficult, and more because it's in the cold. This is another reason why our lineage is better off with younger people. The strain on the body is very much to the point I felt like my arms and legs were going to fall off. Ochako winced a little, remembering the pain before seeing Izuku come back with Seiko looking like she was ecstatic after being changed. Did you make your daddy change your stinky diaper? Come here, my little fox pup. Ochako took Seiko from Izuku to rest her on her lap as they continued teaching Eri about being a shrine maiden. 2. So is there some kind of special ceremony when one changes to a shrine maiden, or is it just you take on the job when you turn a certain age or reach a point? Hagakuri asked as a way to understand where the change-up occurs for Ochako and who would take over her mantle when all is said and done. That's a good question. You see, a ceremony is held after the shrine maiden reaches either 13 or 14. Depending on where their birthday falls on. If there isn't a month in advance before this ceremony, it has to be held off until they are 14. This is so we can produce the 30 days of offerings between both parent and child before the ceremonial dance and transfer of the title. It's a very important ritual that I trained for 2 years to complete. If I was to fail this, it would bring extreme lack of prosperity to my family. And you believe it would? Todoroki asked, somewhat not believing it. You saw a talking fox woman who said she turned off my fertility for Izuku and also made Tiny of all people bow. Do you honestly think that she wouldn't? She also raised the friggin' dead. At this point, having any skepticism that these things could happen is just denial as a whole. Todoroki didn't want to say anything else with Sue speaking up. She has a point. Whatever. Just make sure those stupid flea bags are treated if they're anywhere around me. Bakugo shouted while looking behind him with a fox on two pushing a bamboo shoot up his butt. What is wrong with these things? The fox flipped him off before disappearing in a puff of smoke. 2. Stop saying rude things to my family and our foxes and maybe you'll avoid finding the pleasures of having something up your butt. That reminds me, Izuku, can you be a deer and keep yourself healthy tonight? I still think she's part dog somewhere with how she acts. Everyone thought this as Ochako smiled at Izuku with him going red. The day of the provisional had finally come for the members of Class A. The group as a whole was excited and nervous on both ends. On the Midoriya family's side though, they began going through things like they normally would expect with a more active Izuku than before. You're looking more alive than normal, man. Seiko's sleeping patterns became normal or something? Kirishima asked, leaning over their seats to see the small infant awake and happily gumming a toy. Yep, she only wakes up about 3 times a night, and those are for a diaper change, attention or for something to eat. She naturally has a high metabolism. Just like her mama. Ochako spoke in a cutesy voice while nuzzling her face next to Seiko's to gain a small giggle from the girl. So, who's watching the kids while you do this, or are one of you hanging back and waiting for later? Jiro asked while seeing Eri play with Ichi by placing her hand somewhere and having the small fox tap its paw on her hand before trying her other hand to repeat the process. Tiny agreed to help and Mr. Aizawa said he'd help where he can. Izuku happily answered with the said giant fox sitting next to their teacher. So how long have you been a teacher? Long enough to have seen most things and not get shocked. The two held an awkward silence as Aizawa continued to ask random questions to avoid the lack of noise between them. So you know how to make alcohol and rice? Yes, actually, it's a pleasant thing that I have the privilege to do as one of Inari's loyal servants. So what's your pay? We don't get paid. We do this as a means to worship her. She is our goddess after all. As a reward, when our time comes to an end we are reincarnated into one of her families or back into the wild. Tiny replies, plus there's no need to purchase any food or sake or whatever suits us since she is the goddess of fertility and bounty. I guess I can understand that. Some people don't understand that just living their best life and not trying to rock boats is a more ideal life than trying to fight for something and making yourself look like a fool. If they wish to act a fool, then fine. But they also must understand that if they do not have the privilege to argue that people are looking at them as a fool. Tiny opened a book and tried to get some reading done while he could without needing to worry about external things. The bus stopped soon after with Aizawa standing up and looking at everyone. All right, everyone off. The students all piled off the bus and circled around Aizawa as he gave some final words of encouragement. When he finished, everyone was about to give their school's motto of going beyond, plus ultra, before Tiny stopped a man that was about to shout alongside them. Why did you want to hit that guy? Ochako asked as the guy stood up and bowed to the state of cracking the concrete with his head. My deepest apologies. I just simply love Ua and could not contain myself. Eri stared at the man who had blood coming off his head to give a blunt statement to what she saw. Mommy, do all bald people hit their heads hard enough to bleed? I'm not bald, little girl. See, I just have short hair. He responded happily as Eri tried to heal him the best that she could to at least stop the bleeding. Why thank you, little girl. Having a power like that truly is amazing. Haha, I bet you'll find yourself being greatly thanked in the future for that amazing quirk of yours. The name's Inasa, by the way. Eri looked at her parents for them to nod and answer back. My name is Eri Midoriya. I'm a member of the Inari house and it's very nice to meet you, bald headbutt man. She bowed for everyone to start laughing at the incident they just saw. Did I do something wrong? As Izuku approaches, he tries his best to avoid laughing. No, you just said something we didn't plan for you to. Anyway, sorry if my daughter might have hurt your feelings. My name's Izuku Midoriya and I'm her father. It's a pleasure to meet you. But, how old is she? Izuku whispered in Inasa's ear for him to hear the situation. She's technically adopted, so please don't think something's off. The woman with the baby over there is my wife and our second daughter is in her hands. Wait, but how old are you? 16. It's a complicated situation. That's better if you don't think too much into it. You'll be better off not trying to wrap your head around it today of all days. I see. Inasa crossed his arms in understanding before smiling back to Eri. Seems you're a nice little girl from your father's statements. I hope to become friends with your family. Inasa, do not idolize with the enemy in such a cordial way. A person with rather intense eyes and purple hair came over with another that had fawn-colored hair and a third who had hair growing around his body exposing only a single eye. Sorry about that, just being polite to some kids is all. Inasa tried to avoid problems with the man looking at Izuku and Eri. Disgusting to think people such as you are here. I don't know who's the most shameful person in UA. You, the woman that was pregnant during the sports festival, or the boy that decided to get kidnapped. You all are such disgraces too. 1. Seems someone is jealous that women don't find him attractive. Ochako responds while giving her attention to Seiko who's soaking it up. This however, did not sit right with the man to shout in anger. I am attractive to women. At least I'm not some kind of WHOR. The man was cut off as a glint of cold steel pressed against his throat. Timidly he looks down at the glowing emerald eyes of Izuku who is pressing his wakizashi to his throat. Finish that sentence. I fucking dare you, he threatens. I'm sorry. The boy stammers, any sense of pride and bravado having evacuated his body, along with the contents of his bladder. Well, you beat me to it, I was gonna deck him. Inasa says proudly before walking up and doing just that. The punch sent the teen head over heels, hard enough to knock his socks off. 3. Everyone looked at the group somewhat uneasy before Aizawa spoke up. All right, everyone inside before we go from attempted murder to full-on homicide. They agreed with Izuku and Ochako giving Seiko and Eri to their teacher and Tiny. The large fox glanced down at the infant who began reaching for his whiskers. You mustn't play with a fox's whiskers, young miss. You can mess with their equilibrium if you do. Holy crap, that's a big fox. The two adults and Eri turned to see a woman with bright green hair wrapped in a bandana walk over towards them smiling widely. The oddest part of her outfit overall was the fact she looked more like she was a kids performer with bright colors to make one think she worked with children. Heya, Eraser, how long's it been? Joke, what do you want? Do you know this woman, Aizawa? I do, I'm an old friend of Aizawa's. You could argue that we are star-crossed lovers that worked side by side in our agencies. Thanks to this, a mutual love bloomed. No it didn't. Aizawa cut the woman off for her to begin busting a gut laughing. There are only 3 things I love in this world. Cats, liquor and my son. Not you. 1. You're always such a Debbie Downer. Ha ha ha, you and I should get married. I promise a house full of happiness and laughter if you do. That sounds like a death sentence to me. Ha ha ha, you're a buzzkill. The two continued this as the group went inside and sat in the stands. As they did, Joke noticed Eri and Seiko to question them. So who do these kids belong to? She kept laughing for Eri to introduce herself. My name is Eri Midoriya and this is my baby sister Seiko. Our mommy and daddy are doing this test thingy and we're with Mr. Sleepy Man and Tiny so we don't do anything to get them in trouble. Ah, aren't you the cutest little thing? I also like your little puppy next to you. Joke referenced Ichi for both him and Eri to tilt their heads in confusion. Ichi's a fox though. To make a long story short, they're part of some religion that worships foxes and the odd thing about it is it's not complete trash with no proof that it actually is true. Wait, so divine stuff is real. Joke asked for Tiny to calmly answer. Literally every single one is real. Tiny says, causing Miss Joke to give him a surprised look. So do souls and reincarnation exist? Yes, but it depends on what religion you follow. For Eastern religions, yes, we do reincarnate, and oftentimes you can choose what you reincarnate as. In Western there is heaven and hell as well as purgatory if you believe in that. Joke nodded her head in understanding before a smile once again split her face, now turning to look at Aizawa. Any chance we're possible reincarnations of past lovers? I mean, you and I do make a great duo that would definitely be worth being husband and wife. I'm not marrying you and I doubt that that's even a thing. You'd be shocked what is and isn't a thing, Aizawa. Tiny held Seiko while patting Eri's head. Reincarnation is real. In fact, you wear the face of the person you loved most in your previous life. Your past life didn't choose a good-looking person then. Eri pipes up, leaving Aizawa absolutely speechless. 9. Ha 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 ha. Joke kept laughing with Eri smiling at the woman. I like her. She's funny. That she is. Tiny smiled at this before a question came to Joke's mind. So, do you have some kind of fated soulmate or something? I actually do. She's a lovely fox called Pomona and we truly do love one another. Am I the only one seeing a fox as tall as me with boobs and human features? Everyone stared at Joke before blankly answering her. Yes. Seiko even nodded at this before a strange smell came to Eri to have her sniff the air. What is wrong, young mistress? I smell something. The smell of a bad person that took me. You do. Where are they? Eri kept sniffing the air trying to find the origin of it. I don't know. I'm sorry. She held her head and ears down before having a pat on the head by Joke. Don't worry, Squirt. We'll keep an eye out and see if we can find whoever this is. Besides, it's not like these people are gonna try an all-out invasion of a provisional. All we'd have to do is tell the thousands of people down there that they can use their quirks and they're done. This didn't sit as well with the small child, but it gives Eri enough comfort not to put so much fear into her concerns. 2. Hearing Eri's worry, Tiny began standing up and walking out of the stadium to be alone with Seiko. Kurama joined him out of the area and stood towards the side. Mistress, is there a chance that we can have someone search for any threats right now? Inari comes out of a shadow to smile at her subordinate. I already have some foxes searching and keeping guard in case something happens. Before anything can happen, this person will be minced meat. The fox goddess smiled at this before disappearing back into the shadows. Once she was gone, Kurama looked up at Tiny somewhat uneasy. Do you think everything will be alright? I wouldn't have asked Lady Inari to waste her time having our forces watched to make certain if I thought otherwise. I trust our young mistress's senses and I do not wish to question it. We are protecting in case of the worst outcome, not holding out for the best. Tiny went back towards the group with Kurama shaking his head in disbelief. Hard to believe something like this is happening. At least we know that we have some kind of safety net in case the unthinkable does. Somewhere in Japan, as the provisional exams went on, evil is stirring in another part of the country. In an abandoned warehouse, a man with arrows on his hair walked calmly inside. There, he was met with Shigaraki and several members of the League. Shigaraki glared at the man as he bowed in front of the villain. Shigaraki, it's a pleasure to meet you. What's a Yakuza doing in front of me? To be honest, I've come to make a deal. Shigaraki glared at him before asking a serious question. My master had asked you for help in the past. You and your leader said no. We asked you again when you had your boss overhaul as the leader and once again you declined. What's the change now? Because I can offer you something interesting. Something that even you can't pass up. Bringing All for One back to life. Reversing death and having him stand before you to assist you as he once did. This bit intrigued the villain as he listened to the man more intently. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Chrono and I am a former assistant to the previous head of the Yakuza. I'd like to offer a bit of a merger of our two factions if you'll allow me to speak. Shigaraki seemed more interested in the words spoken to him as he leaned forward to listen carefully. So, how exactly do you plan to do this? Allow me to fill you in on which Yakuza I'm affiliated with. I am now the leader of the Shihasaikai. We are part of the main branch. But of course, our power in the world has been getting weaker and weaker due to the birth of quirks. As such, our former boss, the boss that was before Overhaul, decided to try and ride the waves the best he could and keep the Yakuza alive just barely. This did not sit right with my former boss, Overhaul. He wanted to revise the group and bring them into a world where we are superior and create a way to rid the world of quirks. However, he was cut short and as such, unable to succeed in this mission. Currently I am pulling the strings, but our faction and control in the underworld is weak compared to what it was even when Overhaul was our leader. So I come to you now in a chance to help us both. You give us this merger and in exchange, we can give you back your group's top player. Do we have a deal? Reviving someone that is long gone. That sounds a little sketchy for my tastes. Dabi points this out with everyone in the room uneasy with this answer as well. It sounds more like you're trying to guide us with pretty words to do what you want. What makes us so certain that you're not pulling our leg and saying that you'll do this without stabbing us in the back once we do what you want? He's got a point, this does sound quite sketchy. No way, man, this sounds totally legit. Twice sided with Dabi, somewhat for Chrono to calmly explain what he was able to do. I understand your concern, however, this goes with the information we were talking and trying to figure out while our boss was the leader. He was able to come across a quirk that allowed him to permanently erase quirks. Our job was to bring this power to a more controlled form and use it to target the quirk factor gene inside the human body as a whole. Once this happens, we can sell the completed product to villains and sell the cure to pro-heroes. That was our goal. However, that does not mean we cannot reverse life itself and restore what was lost. In this case, reverse the effects of death itself. And do you have proof that this is even possible? Spinner asked, somewhat interested but still very skeptical if this was even possible. We have recently come across the body of our former head a month ago. With our science, we are restoring him back to what he was before and will bring him back entirely in the confines of a month. Once this happens, we will be able to reclaim the tool we used to make all this possible and complete our final product. And once this is done, those that are affiliated with us will have the power to rise up and become far more powerful than we could ever dream of. 1. So you are planning for the future and thinking we will follow you. What makes you think we are willing to join you? Compress asked, prompting Chrono to point out one bit of information that is needed. Our main tool for this was someone you are fondly aware of. A little girl held by the Midoriya family. If you were to assist us in reclaiming her from them, we can offer a deal in exchange for your master's revival. So, you wish for the girl. That's a hefty order you're asking for. Dabi mentions. Perhaps, but I'm certain you're all quite angered by the Midoriya family and desire to see them squirm. Adding to this, we have our own score to settle, finding information that proves that they were most likely the cause of our former boss's death. We'll happily work alongside you in exchange for the girl, and as a way to aid in good tidings, we can bring back your master once we have the necessary tools to do so. In short, you bring us the girl and we'll bring back your boss using her. This is fishy. Even if that's the case, why should we trust you? I trust them to the death. Twice spoke up with Shigaraki, weighing his options. How long would it take to bring back master? 2 to 3 months, depending on the condition of the body. If we're starting from almost scratch, it could take up to half a year. However, that doesn't mean it's impossible. Looking at the cons, Shigaraki is walking into a very questionable deal. However, they agreed to join and merge their troops. That doesn't always mean that they're merged evenly on missions. Alright, you have a deal. However, I get the right to call the shots on what the missions are, and for the Midoriya couple, I kill them. You don't get the right to. Fair trade. But remember, the white-haired girl is ours. If we can't have her, we can't revive your master. Yes, just give us a way to contact you so we can discuss stuff in greater detail later on. Chrono nodded before giving a card to Spinner and walking out. Once he did, the Gecko man looked at his leader uneasily. You do realize this could be a trap and they're using us? Perhaps. However, that doesn't mean that we will be entirely on the front lines. The Yakuza are a useful pawn, but at the end of the day still a pawn. Right now, they want to get revenge on the Midoriyas just as much as I do. So, why not give them the opportunity? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they succeed in their mission. If they can bring us that much closer to our success, then it's worth having them think they hold all the cards when in the end we reap the benefits of their labor. As Shigaraki said this, Chrono held a similar thought process. Yes, they could bring back AFO, but the method they use would require an actual body. There is no actual guarantee they could do it, but emphasizing the possibility of this being able to be done isn't necessary. Saying that they can bring AFO back is enough to make Shigaraki a pawn in their hands as they patiently wait for their boss to revive. All we just have to do is work with them until we reclaim Eri. Once that happens, all we need will fall into place on their own. Chrono spoke calmly to himself as he walked away from the building, thinking of how to progress the faction in a way Overhaul would desire it. Walking out of the stadium, Aizawa, Tiny, Joke, Seiko and Eri had come towards the bus they arrived in. There, they had seen the entire class there talking amongst each other with some laughing. Once they noticed their teacher, they pulled away to see Ochako holding Izuku into her chest and pouting to no end. Who stole that girl's Twinkie? Ha ha ha. Joke tried to laugh this off for Ochako to scowl at her. Okay, easy. I just wanted to tickle your funny bone. I didn't wanna pick a fight with you, little miss. Mommy. Eri ran up to Ochako immediately for her face to turn from one of anger to one of joy. Hi Eri, how was your day? Did you like spending time watching your mommy and daddy kick butt? Eri nodded as the brunette went over to hold Seiko, who was happy to see her mother. Were you a good little baby while we were gone too? The small baby giggled as their teacher had everyone start loading up on the bus. Once done, Izuku had sat next to Ochako, who was giving him a cold shoulder. Ochako, I told you before, it wasn't what you thought it was. Oh really? Then why did it look like you were more interested in that girl than me? She even waved at you, giving a love-struck image. Do you prefer women that are closer to your size, or maybe ones that have a more pulled-in chest? No, of course I don't prefer those types of women. I mean, you are a bit larger than a normal woman. So I'm fat now, and no, not that type of larger. I just mean you're bigger than most women. So you're mad that I'm larger than most girls. That's not what I'm saying. Izuku tried to reason with his logic as Ochako kept going on a bit of a tangent. This caught Aizawa's attention, further irritating the poor man. Why do I have to hear their lovers spat right now? What's the problem? Sir, it's not a big deal. It's really a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Then why were you on the ground looking like you were ready to get cowgirled by a girl completely naked? Everyone was silent as Ochako said this. All the girls' eyes immediately darted glares at Izuku for him to try and explain himself. It's not what it looked like. I swear, she transformed into you. I helped her and somehow, she was able to melt off her clothes and everything. I didn't do anything or coerce her into doing that, I swear to you. I dunno man. That rager you had after definitely gave me a mix of emotions in your words. Shiro chimed in for Izuku to glare at him. I'm just saying. You're saying it's not deep, but you looked like you wanted some action. So you were looking to cheat. Ochako got very mad with Izuku trying to find out the best way to explain it. How am I so certain you didn't have a quickie with that girl in the bathroom and her waving lovestruck to you as her post-bathroom romance? That never happened. I would never do something unclassy like that to someone. So you never thought of railing Ochako on a toilet seat before? Jiro chimed in with a deadpan face, showing she wasn't too fond of Izuku at the moment. Well, I have thought of it. But I keep it away so I don't come off as a creep. I bet Kaminari has thought of doing that with you. Shiro says to Kaminari, but Jiro manages to hear it and kicks him in the nuts for the joke. And after all the stuff we've done in the past, do you honestly think doing it in a restroom would be unclassy compared to that? You've filled a tub up when we held a deeper night of passion. You've used me like a tool before, and this is where you draw a line of being too perverse. The antics of this was starting to get to everyone for Bakugo to finally speak up. Are you that fucking dumb to think that the nerd could cheat on you and get away with it? Ochako glared at Bakugo and tried to keep him out of their squabbles. This doesn't concern you, Pomeranian. This stopped not concerning me when you started blasting Deku around us and had ears here join in to try and validate your thoughts. Ochako wanted to argue, but realized she opened the door to have to accept the possible insight. First and foremost, Deku's never fucked anyone but you. Second, girls wouldn't look his way unless they had use for him, and being one to spread their legs for him when we were in middle school was one of the last things they were asking for. Third, on what planet would he be willing to cheat on you when you drain him of everything in the tank daily? 4. K. Kachin, stop saying such inappropriate things. My fucking point, he's not ballsy enough to do this shit, and why the hell would he? You're the best catch in our whole fucking school and he married you before we even started classes. Stop bitching and making shit up as you see it and look in the fucking mirror. You're 6 almost 7 feet tall, have boobs bigger than his fucking head and big enough to make ponytail look like she's a member of the itty bitty titty committee like yours is. 3. Go fuck yourself Bakugo, I take that personally. Jiro shouts, flipping off the blonde man. Fuck me yourself coward, enough. I've had it with this ridiculous argument over some psycho student trying to make moves on one of our friends. Midoriya Ochako, you are overreacting not letting him get a word in edgewise, and Midoriya, you should have made it clear from the start that you're married instead of panicking. There, does that fix this? Iida shouts, shocking the others so much that they can't even respond to this. Good, now everyone get on the fucking bus so we can go home. I have a massive headache because my glasses got broken and I've been straining my eyes now for several hours, so please keep the noise to a minimum. Iida demands before marching onto the bus, flopping down into one of the chairs. He pulls a sleep mask over his eyes and folds his arms indignantly. 3. Never thought I'd see the day where he'd drop an F-bomb, much less say anything profane. Ochako says more towards herself than anyone else. 1. Why are all the women I know out of their fucking minds? This is why I'm with Kirishima, you all are fucking crazy. Katsuki remarks before walking over to said redhead, grabbing him by the suspenders of his hero costume and dragging him onto the bus. Wow, he's so sexist that he's gay. That's a new one, Momo says, causing Jiro to nod as the rest of the class starts to funnel onto the bus. 2. To be completely honest, I think calling him sexist with his comment is a little out there, since to be frank, counting his mother, Ochako, and all of our class, we are a little out of the ordinary. Honestly, the most normal of us is probably Seiko, and she's not even toilet trained. Izuku motioned to Seiko, who began busting out laughing at the comment. 1. So, does that mean him calling us out of our minds? Everyone shrugged at Jiro's comment for her to glare at them. Let's just overlook this and pretend the comment didn't happen. Izuku somewhat avoided any more problems before being somewhere they could make problems. 1 hour later, the class came back to the school with the sun beginning to set. As they did, Eri began to nod off a bit for Izuku to carry her on his back. Once they entered into the dorms, almost everyone began cheering and looking to have a bit of a party. The only two that weren't exactly fond of the situation that had happened was Bakugo and Todoroki, who unfortunately failed the exam and were unable to find out until the end of the second half. As such, both decided to head up to their room. Since the kids were somewhat tired already, Izuku and Ochako put them to bed a little early. However, they kept the monitor for both in case something had happened. Once they came back, Kaminari and Shiro brought out a large bottle of vodka for the two to smirk. Anyone feel like getting lit tonight? 1. I think you're more dumb than you look, thinking that's smart. Ochako gave a smirk as Tiny rolled his eyes and went away with a puff of smoke before returning in a similar smoke, holding a bottle in his hands. Where did you even find that? If we are having something to drink, why not enjoy something more enjoyable? Well, if you are offering, I'm willing to have a little. Izuku said, accepting a glass from Tiny. We stole it from Mr. Aizawa. Of course you did. Well, count me out. I'm still breastfeeding, so I can't have any. Ochako says, turning her nose up at the idea. I guess if we're having alcohol, I'd go with something Tiny suggests. Ditto. Yaoyorozu and Jiro walked towards Tiny, with those that agreed going towards the giant fox. Oh come on. We both worked hard to get this and you're all just going to turn your nose at us. Kaminari shouted for an ahem to come towards the door. Might I ask what you're doing with my coping mechanism? Aizawa asks, looking towards the class irritated. 3. Sir, if you'd like, I can offer you a nice bottle of sake that we infuse with some lovely berries for flavor. Kumasi came out of a poof with a nice-sized bottle with a label called Friendly Fox on it and gave it to the teacher. What's the proof? It's a rice liquor, not a wine, so it's 120 proof. Bitchin'. You may proceed, Aizawa says as he snatches his vodka bottle back from Zero, then shambles away. 3. Why do you both have to be so moronic to steal from your teacher? Everyone stopped immediately and turned to Kumasi, who had spoken like an old British man. 1. So when did Kumasi learn to talk? That's your question, Midoriya. Everyone shouted at Izuku for the bear to calmly answer him. 2. I have learned over the time I had returned home. Tiny has been most helpful in teaching me enough to have a proper conversation with you, young master. And you learned while talking like a man from England. Indeed. I find them quite a fresh and reasonable group of individuals, and I was able to mimic them well. Tiny had opened the bottle he had in his fur along with a wine glass to pour and drink from it. Sigh, quite refreshing if you ask me. That's oddly enough not the weirdest thing I've learned of my family. Ochako came from the kitchen with a large stack of food and began eating alongside Kumasi while also passing him a few sandwiches to eat. Okay. What's the weirdest thing that actually have been shown to you by your family? Sue asked for Ochako to finish pushing a foot-long sandwich in her mouth to chew and think on it. Well, the rising of the dead. I think anyone would have taken the cake. But if we pull that away, because I think that was something working alongside death, if we're honest, I'd have to put it to seeing my parents in the bath a few years back. That's normal. Everyone shouted for Ochako to stare at them like they're a bunch of weirdos. You see your parents regularly in the bath naked looking to make passionate love together? Weird. 2. Like you're one to talk. Personally, I think the spider crab massacre I've seen is the weirdest thing in your family. Izuku points this out with Ochako shaking her head in disapproval. That's not weird. That's a celebration feast on the norm with us. So slaughtering monstrous crabs that can snap a knife with just their shell and hearing what sounds like bloody murder in the other room isn't weird to you. Ochako shrugs at Izuku, trying to think of the logic. Guess it's just weird to you because you're not around it so often. Nobody wanted to touch this anymore for the group to look at Izuku next. So, any great stories you've got about her family? Ashido asked for everyone to smile and wait for an answer. Well, I actually got a few. One time was when I was talking with Ochako's mom. We had a bit of a conversation about having kids with Ochako. She told me about a sweet spot that is in their family. Where's the sweet spot? Kaminari excitedly asks with wide eyes. Right here. Izuku says as he places his hand on the back of Ochako's head before starting to massage her ears. Immediately the brunette almost melted at his touch, tilting her head upwards into his hand as her tails start to wag uncontrollably as he scratches her ears. It's basically a turn-off switch for whenever she gets mad. Let's just say it helped a lot when she was pregnant with Seiko. Oh yeah. Ochako smiled happily as a bit of drool came off her mouth. Higher. Higher. Right there. Almost. On. Ochako gave a loud moan for Izuku and everyone to stare at her a little uneasy. That also happens, Izuku says as Ochako tilts to the side, falling into his lap. Usually she purrs when I do this, but that only happens when I do it to both ears. Like a cat? Momo reclaims. Yep. Ochako hugged Izuku tightly and began passionately kissing him. She pushed him to the ground and began wagging her tails rapidly. Though if anyone else tries they'll get incinerated. Some guy tried it when we were on our honeymoon and, well, it wasn't pretty. 2. Okay. Clearly we now know how Izuku can turn on Ochako's switch. Ochako eventually pulled away from Izuku for the couple to smile at one another. So, would you like to continue this in our room? Izuku asked for Ochako to whisper in his ear. Only if you're ready for more entertainment from me. Okay. Let's move on with something else before things go too adult. Jiru mentioned before taking a sip of the sake she was given by Tiny. Any chance you have something good and sweet? Then I suggest having a bit of sake we make with some plum juice inside it. Kumasi offered to pour the girl the drink for her to take a sip from it and smile. It's quite delightful, isn't it? It actually is. Kinda tastes like juice. Just be extremely cautious. That which goes down easier tends to hit you notably harder because you do not hold yourself back. Oh come on. Do you honestly think I won't be able to hold myself back? Jiru said this as she continued to drink another glass. Well, I suppose being the voice of reason to you is the best outcome I can give you. Kumasi pulled the bottle away and placed it in his mouth before walking towards the other side of the room and pouring a glass for himself and Tiny. The two enjoyed their drink while talking amongst each other. So, Lady Inari said that you were able to learn multiple different languages. Fantastic. Yes. After gaining the ability to speak as a human, I was rather inspired to learn other languages. Sips. It's quite lovely to find out languages and learn about the world through them. Kumasi seemed happy as he thought about how many different tongues he was able to speak. While this happened, he was given a peanut butter cracker to eat. This, however, was not the greatest moment for him as he had a notable amount of peanut butter stuck on the top of his mouth to start struggling to lick it off. Smart animals we may be, there are still common traits of our species we still struggle with. Tiny commented as he watched Kumasi struggle and the rest of the class begin diverging into madness from alcohol to some degree. Inside a fake city, we see Tiny and Izuku training among one another. The two had been sharing blow for blow with each other for the green-haired boy to duck under a punch and knee the giant fox in the gut, taking some wind out of him. Not bad, young master. Tiny smiled as he grabbed Izuku's torso to give a knee of his own to Izuku's side. But still no match for me just yet. Izuku braced himself for this attack as he was sent sliding back a distance. You seem to be distracted. Until you are able to clear the clouds that obstruct your focus, you won't be able to become a proper head of our house. TCH. I'm trying my best, sir. Izuku struggled to answer for Tiny to calm himself and talk with the young man. There is still insecurity in your mind somewhere. What is troubling you? Izuku hesitated to answer with Ochako walking over with Seiko and asking a single question. It's about you passing in Bakugo, not, isn't it? Yeah. Growing up, we all knew Kacchan would be a great hero, and if anyone would be one among us, much less the one to surpass all might, it would be him. Thanks to that, everyone kinda believed there was no reason I could even have to stand up to someone like that. But the fact I'm at UA, was able to succeed in a notable amount of things and also attain the provisional before Kacchan, it just feels surreal and hard to accept. And why is it hard to accept? Tiny asked for Izuku to turn away, uneasy to answer this. Young lord, you are capable of many things right now. You have the house of Inari siding with you, and that is no easy feat. You have given our house an heir and are able to become a great support for our home as a whole. You have power to rival that of our mighty warriors and are beloved in the faction as a member. You had done this all with your own hard work. That is simply the deciding factor here. But Kacchan also put in just as much hard work and effort, and yet he still failed. What part of that makes me worthy of something where he isn't? Tiny didn't know what to say at this point. Knowing of Izuku's past, he understands that reasoning with him that he worked harder than Bakugo is almost impossible. However, that does not mean he is right in his logic. It just comes down to you having more talent than him. That's all it is and should be. You're just as much of an amazing person as you're letting Bakugo out to be in your mind. Reasoning with this will do nothing, my lady. Tiny walked towards a towel to wipe his hands before continuing. Yes, you both have worked hard, but that does not mean both of you will get the same results with the same amount of effort you put in. Sometimes, you make a small error someone else had and you are positioned lower than them. However, your problem is not that you are looking at your current flaws that were present. You are focusing on the flaws that were present prior to you becoming our family's head. You are keeping to this logic that you are not worth as much as you truly are and won't amount to nearly as much as those that were praised around you for greatness. But in the end, you are just as worthy of praise as these people. 1. It still doesn't feel right. Kacchan should have been able to pass but didn't. The same with Todoroki. Tiny held his head down while releasing a sigh. I shall return. Tiny went away in a puff of smoke for Izuku and Ochako to sit down on a bench. Once there, Ochako began talking with Izuku on how he really feels. Do you genuinely think you don't deserve to be part of the life you're living right now? Not deserving is a little strong of a word used here. I'd say that I'm more uneasy with the fact I get it when people like Kacchan and Todoroki can't. You can't blame them for this. From what I heard, Bakugo shouted at the people who were part of the second half of the exam. Todoroki also picked a fight with someone when he shouldn't have. If you're asking me, those two weren't smart and did this on their own. You were someone that tried to think of the situation and use what we learned in the same field of learning to your advantage. Knowledge is something that should be evenly given. Using it, however, that's up to the person who has its responsibility. Izuku felt a little better as the two noticed Tiny came back. Beside him, however, was Bakugo, who looked somewhat irritable alongside All Might in his smaller form. Speak of the devil and he shall come. Hey, Kacchan, what are you doing? Shut up, nerd. I'm only here because this mutt of yours wanted smack. Bakugo was cut off with Tiny smacking him upside the head for the insult to him. What the fuck? You know why. Don't act like you don't. Anyway, onto what I wanted to happen. Young master, you think less of yourself because you still believe you are below everyone else. Though yes, you have not had your power for a very long time like everyone else, and you are roughly about a decade behind in first-hand experience, one could argue. However, that does not mean you aren't on the same level as everyone. You have put forth the same exact hard work and dedication as everyone else and more just to catch up and be on the same level. That alone makes you far from below everyone, and to a degree, you are actually on top of most people your age. Take that with pride. 1. Okay, but why is Kacchan here? Izuku asked Tiny to explain. You have constantly thought of yourself being beneath this boy. Tiny paused for a moment to stare at Bakugo to make certain he was accurately addressing him a bit. First off, he is. Secondly, fuck you, I'm a man. 1. Ignoring the rabid bipedal dog with a god complex, Tiny continued. Recently you've come to a bit of a reality that you are actually higher than you are and can't fully accept the fact that you are a step ahead of the one that was around you that regularly was superior. As such, you're worried you are overstepping where you should be and afraid you will slip up with repercussions for you being far worse than they would be for him. Obviously you won't have repercussions, but your mind still thinks you should be behind Bakugo. As such, I'd like you two to fight. Izuku heard this to stare blankly at Tiny. Say what? You heard me, sir. I would like you to fight Bakugo so you can understand that you're worth the spot you have. The only reason I'm here is to avoid a problem from happening. If things get out of hand, I will have Tiny step in and stop the two of you in my place. I doubt there will be. Tiny said somewhat confidently as he, All Might, Ochako, Eri and Seiko walked to the side to avoid a problem. Once they were safe, Izuku turned to Bakugo once more, a little uneasy. Kacchan, we don't have to die. Bakugo started with a right hook for Izuku to dodge it immediately and pull away from everyone to avoid someone getting hurt. Are you insane? Shut up and fight me. You heard the mutt, you'll fight me here and now. Bakugo sent another blast for Izuku to jump back before getting grabbed and slammed on the ground. He was about to get another blast right to the face if he didn't move at the last second. Running away isn't an option, nerd. Fight me or you'll get hurt. We shouldn't have to fight. There's no reason. You think I don't know that? ? Bakugo continued to blast at Izuku for him to scowl in rage. To be completely honest, you're supposed to be below me. If things were normal, I'd be the one having the provisional, married and with kids already with how the world's given me a status. But you're fucking able to beat me and get past me in the goals we both wanted. Bakugo sent one more blast to send Izuku back a bit and nearly get hit before jumping over a railing to avoid a blast. This is to see just where I am right now compared to you and find out just why I had to lose and you succeed. Izuku understood Bakugo's frustration. For the longest time, he was below everyone and wanted to be something more. However, Izuku was never able to until given All Might's power to make him remain in a stalemate most of his life till now. You're right, Kacchan. Why was I the one who was able to succeed instead of you? But that doesn't mean I won't fight you seriously going forward. Izuku charged at Bakugo with his hand gripping his blade. Bakugo prepared for this to prepare for the attack. He dodged it, but felt a sting on his cheek to rub a finger over it and see Izuku was able to get him. He scowled while glaring at Izuku and propelling himself forwards with his quirk. Once Izuku prepared for another attack, Bakugo changed his trajectory and blasted Izuku in the back to slide him forwards. If you're finally taking this seriously, then show me what you're made of. The ash blonde came again to try and get behind Izuku before having the sole of Izuku's foot slam into his stomach and be sent into a railing, denting it back in the process. Okay, That's somewhat hot. Ochako smirked as Izuku stormed towards Bakugo. Son of a bitch. Bakugo held his hands together to try and get some distance. Stun grenade. The flash kept Izuku from seeing anything for him to pull back and use his newer special move. AP shot. The ash blonde blasted multiple shots of his quirk to Izuku, knowing he wouldn't be able to handle the fight at close range. He was able to avoid some, but Izuku was now faced with running out of areas to dodge while having multiple blasts coming his way. The green-haired boy smirked before slicing the attacks while also sending a slash of lightning and sending Bakugo flying into a building. I knew that he'd figure out long or short range would have to be the best way to get me. Izuku jumped into the building to see it was dark and impossible to see anything at the moment. He calmed his mind and shut his eyes. Focus on your other senses when sight isn't able to be used. Your eyes will lie to you. Do not trust them fully. He repeated a lesson Ochako's mother taught him to listen closely to any and all sounds. When he did, he heard the sound of rustling debris to the side of him to turn and narrowly miss a blast by Bakugo. I'm not done yet. The ash blonde sent another blast towards Izuku for him to be sent out of the building, but recovered and landed properly in midair. Bakugo came charging back at Izuku for another round of AP shots to make Izuku slash them. This was a ploy, however, as once the impact came, parts of the blast splintered off and narrowly hit Izuku to have the shots burn some of the clothing on him. Now that was something. Guess you're just as full of surprises as you've always been, Kachin. Izuku didn't want to admit it at the moment, but he was enjoying this fight. For a while now, he wanted to be able to go toe-to-toe with Bakugo and see if he could be just like their favorite pro and never lose. Though he'd never be able to in training due to the fact that the teachers would stop this immediately if it got out of hand at all. Izuku came forward and once again tried to slice at Bakugo for him to dodge and remain out of swinging range. This was a harder challenge now, with Izuku creating slashes of air pressure using the back of his blade and OFA to break his focus a bit and make the gap between them harder and harder to keep. Eventually, Bakugo was on the defensive and forced to use his attacks to create breathing room by forcing Izuku away or risk getting burned. This succeeded for him to be able to jump high up in the sky and begin spiraling with his quirk, moving him faster and faster into a circle. Howitzer. The smoke had turned into a raging tornado of flames coming right for the OFA user for him to try and remain as composed as possible while watching for an opening. Izuku prepared for this while using the back of his blade. Detroit. His blade started to have electricity come up his sword with his muscles tensing up, preparing for the next strike about to be given. Both connected together while shouting together as they collided into one another for a flash of blinding light to come before the massive blast that was to come next. Impact strike. The force of the shockwave was able to send smaller items around them flying and force Eri to hold on to her mother for dear life in fear. Everyone around was forced to cover their eyes before noticing a huge smoke cloud appearing in front of everyone to make the winner unclear. As everything settled, everyone saw both Izuku and Bakugo holding the other at a point where neither was able to move an inch without the other about to hit the other. The back of Izuku's blade was held at Bakugo's throat with Bakugo's hand on Izuku's face ready to fire if needed. Tiny got between both of them, holding Bakugo's wrist and Izuku's hand to make certain neither continued. Let's end this here. If we continue, someone might actually get hurt. Bakugo glared at Izuku in anger before finally speaking up. You kept fucking holding back. Why? Izuku didn't answer right away for it to irritate the ash blonde more. You said you were going to take me seriously, then why the hell weren't you? I know you could have done better than that, so why? Because I know what you're going through right now. I hated growing up beneath everyone and I know beating you would have never solved anything. You're still amazing, Kachin. I always thought you were growing up and it's because of that, I want to avoid breaking you. Though the two weren't on even terms, there was a form of respect. Next time we fight, you better not hold back or I'll fucking kill you. Fair, but next time we fight, I'll show you I can be just as much the #1 hero in the future as you. The ash blonde got up and shouted at Izuku in irritation. Screw you, I'm gonna be the next #1 hero before you, shit rag. I'll get even stronger so your fucking wife won't be able to beat me either. Then I guess I'll train harder. Izuku calmly replied to irritate Bakugo more. You can't just say that you'll get better than me when I say I'll be better than you. But I'm just responding back to your claim you'll be the best through your hard work by saying I'll do the same and aim for the top like you. Then I'll work harder than that. Then I'll work harder than that too. The two started a small quarrel for everyone to watch with some satisfaction. Seems these two are in high spirits. Tiny smirked with All Might smiling at the two. That reminds me, I never did know why you chose someone like the young master to inherit your power. It was because he had the dream to become a hero and drive. Unfortunately he lacked the tools and as such, I thought giving him my quirk would put him on the same playing field. All Might smiled as Tiny picked up Eri and went with Ochako away. Well, you are right about that. I wonder just how strong the young master will be when he attains the title of number 1. The group continued on with both teens now following and continuing their argument similar to little kids. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and now we will see you in the next video.